Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Best Overall Show, episode 12. It is June 10th, 2021, and I am joined today by my returning guest and special co-host today, Daniel Smith. Daniel, thank you so much for being on the cast. How are you?
I'm doing great. Appreciate you having me back on.
Thank you for coming on. Actually, it's funny because your last episode, the one that you came on, is still one of the most popular episodes of the Best Overall Show we had, even though that was like our third episode, and we've had a lot more viewers since then. So obviously, I just want to give the people what they want.
Well, I guess it's the other guy, 'cause it's probably not me. Where's David at?
Well, as many of you guys know, David is going through some life changes right now, and he is currently moving himself across the central parts of America. So he will be on indefinite hiatus until who knows when. So maybe he'll be back, maybe he won't. But for now, you're stuck with me and my rotating cast of co-hosts and or myself if I can't find anyone willing to subject themselves to hang out with me for an hour. So all right. So today we have a lot to talk about. Actually, I have medium amounts of salt in me. I have one little rant that I need to get off my chest after having many fights in our local tournament TOs, which I'm going to talk about. Just a quick few announcements. I did talk about a little bit about them on the show last week, but just want to reiterate all of them. So moving forward, the stream content schedule is slightly reduced for the summertime. Just we've had beautiful weather here. I'm a little bit more busy with curated YouTube content, so I've been doing a lot of that. And yeah, 5 shows a week is a lot for one person to produce and manage, and on top of my full-time job and producing content and painting actual models and actually playing games, and then also having social life. So just trying to find a good balance of things. And obviously the schedule will be going up on YouTube and on my Instagram, JimOV_paints. We are at 425 subs for Twitch, which is not 500. So the goal is 500 by the end of this month. So if you guys are listening or watching this on YouTube or on a podcast form, go over to Twitch, hit that like, subscribe button, or whatever the button is on Twitch. Give us that. We did pass 1,500 subs on YouTube, which was amazing. So thank you everyone that has subscribed to the channel. And if you didn't subscribe to the channel, why not? I mean, about 30% of my viewers are not subscribed to this channel. So if you guys want me to be happy, just make sure to subscribe. And so I can thank that 1,500 subscribers to my very good friends that play on tabletop. So a few weeks ago, we had my army showcase that went live, 30,000 points of chaos. And yesterday we actually had hey, for some reason the chat restream is not working. So let me just figure out what's going on here while I talk. Let's see here.
You could sing for us while you do this.
I can sing.
Yeah, I can't. I don't know. You look like you should be able to sing well.
I have an awful singing voice, guys. I am not able to sing. Let's see here, chat box. My restream chat does not want to work. All right, we don't have no restream chat today, guys. That's okay. You can just watch it on YouTube or on I'll try to figure out when Daniel's talking, not right now, so just bear with me. But you should be able to see the chat. Actually, let me see here. Is that working? Oh no, the bot is working. It's just not displaying it in the. It's just not displaying it in the frame, which is really odd. So I will take a look at that when I can. So as I mentioned, I did my battle report with Play on Tabletop. It went live, I believe, 2 days ago. So make sure to check that out on their channel. It was obviously not my best outing. And I did want to address some of the Play on Tabletop guys are very nice, and I'm very grateful to be on their show. I have a lot of fun, but there's a few douchebags in the comments. When you have like a channel with 150,000 followers, you do often get a decent amount of douchebags. So there's a few people complaining about the game, saying like, oh, like, who are these guys? Do they need to play? Whatever. Just keep in mind that that was my 4th game of 9th edition. So I'm still getting back into the groove of things, especially with COVID. So if you thought I made some tactical mistakes, well, I definitely did. I made lots of them. And I'm actually going to be doing a commentary with my opponent, Gary Sacco, next week. So we're going to actually do kind of like a live react / commentary to the video, which should be fun. So hopefully you guys will be able to tune in for that. And then last announcement before we get into the show itself will be And let me just see this because I just screwed up my show notes. Oh yeah, so next week's two actually small announcements. I'm officially confirmed for Charity Hammer with Best in Faction. So the Best in Faction guys run a beautiful event called Charity Hammer out of the Pacific Northwest in Washington, which is just south of me. And with the easing of border restrictions and my current vaccination, getting my second vaccine in about 2 weeks, I'm now able to go and travel down there. So that'll be, I believe it's the first or second week of August this year. And obviously, I'm going to try to have Colin on in the future to talk about that event a little bit more. And then the second announcement is that we have our topic for Politics and Plastic next week. So as you guys know, with the pared down streaming schedule, Best Overall Show and Politics and Plastic will be alternating every other week. So next week, this is the last Best Overall Show for 2 weeks. So next week's Politics and Plastic topic is sexism and simping. And I have... yeah, so it's going to be about basically the wide range of, I guess, people in the community and how they treat basically women and just people of opposite sexes, whether they treat them sexist or they're simping, and how there's basically both and how it's problematic in both sides. And so we're going to kind of get into that and just really kind of deep dive into that whole topic. And I'm going to have a female on to Tanya Gates, actually the War Mistress, to discuss the topic with me. So I'm very excited to have her on. All right, that's it for that's it for the announcements. All right, so let's talk about current projects. Daniel, what are you working on? What's new with you? And talk as much as you want because I'm going to try to fix this chat while you try to figure.
All right, I will just go until you tell me otherwise, Jim.
Go for
it. So I decided a couple 2-3 months ago, I don't know, that Sisters of Battle was a great financial decision, mostly because I'm in a chat and a podcast with Tim Pinney, who has been talking about Sisters of Battle nonstop for at least a year. And so essentially, I haven't been to a GT for who knows how long because of COVID. I've gone to a couple RTTs here and there, but I hadn't really been jiving with an army or anything. So all that to say, I decided to start Sisters of Battle, sign up for a GT in Tampa, and I decided I was going to build, prime, paint, everything, a 2,000 point list for this GT. So as any of you who have built or painted Sisters know, that is, the army is a marathon, not a sprint. Building those models is a test of will to see if the Emperor approves you to actually play Sisters or not. Like, when I found out that a piece of cloth had 3 different bits that went in between the legs of one model, I was close to quitting at that point. But fortunately now I have assembled over 2,000 points because the list has kind of changed as I've been working. I've painted probably at this point 1,300 points of the army. So I'm on pace for the GT is in 2 weeks. I should be pretty well fully painted and based for that GT. So it's looking good. Now, the funny thing is, the following weekend, I have another GT that kind of popped up last minute because I'm taking Tim's place because he couldn't get off of work, and it's a team tournament. And that's using 9th edition Sisters Battle rules. So I'm essentially having to learn, write, build, and paint that list simultaneous to my 8th edition GT list. And sorry, I just saw in the comments, this dude knows exactly what model I'm talking about. The Seraphim Zephyr with the bit. And I have 20 of those angels in my list, so I had to build that model 4 times. So that was great. I figured out, I think, the third one in how it works, the little cheat to get it to work right. But yeah, so I ended up not just one army, but 2 armies for 2 back-to-back GTs that are very similar, but about 500 to 600 points are going to be different. And with release schedules, I'm getting my Celestian Sacrosancts on Saturday, which is my deadline for my normal army, for my 8th edition list. So my idea is to finish the 8th edition list, built, paint, based everything on Saturday, and then that Sunday, now I'm building 20 Sacrosancts. I'm building 10 Dominions. Dogmata, a couple other models. So like I have another 30 to 40 Battle Sisters to build and paint in the 2 weeks, the week leading up to a GT. Then I don't get that weekend because I'm playing the GT, and then I have another work week before I can finally like. It's crazy, but I brought some of the models to show off because they're super basic. But there's a rhino in case you've never seen a rhino before,
Never.
and it also shows it shows a little bit of my paint scheme. I went with the Order of the Thorn, and I found out that I hate myself because picking a very light armor, I can't get it to focus. Whatever. Picking a very light armor on an army where you're gonna have 80 to 100 models, you have to do so many coats. I hate it, and if I had the chance, I would just prime the whole thing silver, dunk it in that new super thick wash, and then just use mineral spirits and call it a day.
All right, well, there you have it, the Daniel Smith method of painting, which is it's not something I would ever do. But Sisters, actually, I actually did a how to paint Sisters of Battle video recently, about a month ago. That was my last painting video, and yeah, I did the standard black and red, so I thought it was fairly straightforward, the scheme I did. So maybe check it out if you want some tips. Speaking of painting videos, I know people keep bothering me about it, and I said that I would have it out on Tuesday, but the how to paint Death Guard video is very close to being finished. And by very close, I mean the footage is edited, the intro is recorded, and now I basically have to just put in my face and my intro and then my voiceover. So that's kind of with a progress. But you guys have to understand that I have a full-time job that I work Monday to Friday. I have a social life. I also stream, and then I also have commissioned painting projects. So on top of, and then also I'm sometimes a drunk, and it was my birthday this week, so I got a little bit tipsy on Monday and Tuesday night as well. So the last 72 hours have been a bit of a unproductive. Sorry, I live beside a fire station. I don't know if you guys can hear that. So they've been a little bit unproductive, but I'm definitely gonna have that video up as soon as humanly possible. They just take time, guys. Like, I'm new to YouTube, and sorry, I'm new to editing YouTube. The YouTube part's easy. This is the easiest part, just talking. But editing videos in Adobe Premiere takes time. It takes a lot of time, and it's not exactly. I don't have an editor that I pay like some of the other streamers out there, so I have to do it all by myself, and I'm slow at it because I'm new at that stuff. So still working on that. I've started reading more. Sorry, and I always say reading, but I've started listening to Mortis. I'm about a third of the way through. It's excellent. So definitely recommend reading Mortis. And yeah, as far as current projects, I just ordered, I think I mentioned last week, I have 2 Chaos drop pods on the way. I have bits for a set of Noise Marines. So I just got, I'll check these out. I'll see if I can show them. So I got Cromlech. I love Cromlech. They have a great, I don't know if you guys ever ordered from Cromlech. They do a lot of third-party bits, tons of like really cool bits. So I got, hopefully you guys can see these. I got these things here. These are like some Chaos tomes. See if you guys can see them. These are like some Chaos tomes from Cromlech. Hopefully those are coming in focus. And then I also just got some blank shoulder pads. But then I got these things. So for my Noise Marines, these are basically backpacks for my Noise Marines. Let's see if that'll focus. Anyways, I ordered them last week, and they're already here from Europe. Although I did pay the extra $20 for the fast shipping, because I want to get these on the table for the BC 40K League, which actually starts this Tuesday. So I got 20 of these, and I have a set of Chaos Space Marines coming. Plus, I have some 3D printed bits from Shapeways for the guns. So putting that all together, I'm going to put together a really cool unit of Noise Marines. So the list I'm running is 10. I wrote a really nice, it's a really fun Alpha Strike Chaos list, which with Emperor's Children, Noise Marines, and Obliterators in drop pods. And then Cult of Duplicity Thousand Suns, so Zangors and Rubrics. So if I go first, basically I can drop on you Rubrics, Zangors, 2 drop pods full of dudes, all on turn 1. Plus potentially like my character, all my characters as well, because my sorcerers can Cult of Duplicity up and Dark Matter Crystal up, and then my Dreadnought can basically move twice with Warp Time and charge as well. So I'm excited to play that list. It's like super alpha-y, and even if it goes second, it's actually still pretty good because I still get to deep strike on turn 1 with a lot of those elements. So I'm excited to kind of play that list. We'll see how it goes. Also, knowing that Thousand Suns is coming, ordered, drum roll, Mutilates Vortex Beasts. So this is some model. This is the only model basically in the entire Thousand Suns range I don't own. Although to be fair, I don't actually own a Land Raider, but it's one of the few models that I don't own out of like for Chaos. So on a whim, I thought, you know what? I'm gonna start investing in the Mutilates Vortex Beast stonks and ordered a single one. I was almost tempted to get 3 just to like, just to have my 3 and be done with it. Because you know what's gonna happen, right? Just like with every codex, about 3 weeks, as soon as even the hint of rules start to leak, things are going to start to sell out. So once we have a release date for 1,000 Suns, Zangors are going to sell out, Rubrics are going to sell out, Scarab Occults are going to sell out, Magnuses are going to sell out, Mutilates are going to sell out, like all that stuff's going to sell out. It happens with every book. It's happened with every book. Drukhari happened, Admech happened. Like that's just the way of the world right now, right? With GW supply issues. So rather than wait for that to happen, I'm getting ahead of it. And I also ordered an additional 1,000 Suns the Start Collecting, which comes with 10 Rubrics, 10 Zangors, and Armin for $100, which is actually a really good deal. So my plan is to add the Rubrics, which will bring me to 20 because I've only had 10 of them and I've never needed more because I've never really run them. And then that'll bring me up to 40 Zangor on foot, so I can run either 2 units of 20 or they've gone down to 7 points. And then hopefully, depending on what this Infernal Master is, hopefully use that Armin model and convert him into an Infernal Master, because just like the Lord of Violence, I expect to not be able to get my hands on one and just end up converting one, which is what I did for the Lord of Violence. So that's currently my plan, current projects right now. And then obviously I'm still working on this Dark Angels commission. I'm actually going to be doing a I was thinking of doing lots of videos for it, guys, but at this point I just want to get it done and over with. So given how much time I have going into summer, me doing a whole commission series on the Dark Angels is probably not going to happen. I still might do something small, but originally I was going to do like a 7 or 8 part commission, like diaries, behind the scenes, how to paint this Dark Angels commission, but it's like 6K of Dark Angels and it keeps getting bigger. And so now, and also I'm like behind schedule on where I want to be. Shazzy, I can't answer that question, man. That's like an impossible question. So it depends on what's in the list. Yeah, there's no way I can answer that. So if you want, you can go to my website, duplicitypaintstudio.com. There's a link there to put in information on how to get a quote. Just keep in mind, I'm basically not taking any commissions right now. So unless you want to pay me in gold bars or a truckload of cash, I will probably decline the commission. Or if the 2,000 points is like, say, 3 Fire Raptors and like a Gilliman, sure, that's easy. But outside of that, I'm just right now, I want to get this main commission project that I'm doing done. And then I want to focus on my own things for the rest of the summer, especially because also really cool is I bought my ticket. So I have my LVO ticket, which I knew I was going to go to, right? And I have my Las Vegas team tournament ticket. But I just bought my ticket, Daniel, for my first tournament in British Columbia, which is my area, since like basically COVID. So I haven't been to so the last event I went to in BC was in October of 2019. Because that was our last event, and then we had LVO in 2020, and then our first event of the year is usually right after LVO, but that got canceled. It's usually in April. So our usually big GT. So Attack X, which is in Kelowna, British Columbia, Kelowna or Kamloops, I can't remember. It's one of them. It's about a 4-hour drive from me. So I bought my ticket. It's a 128 person major, and I'm gonna have some salt about it. So Dan Miner, who's the TO, if you're listening, and I had actually Dan Miner on a little while ago. To talk about the cost of tournaments. I'm gonna have a little bit of a salt about it later in the show, which you guys will hear. But there is a shocking fact about Attack X, which I need everyone to know, and hopefully you guys can petition Dan Miner to make some adjustments. So stay tuned for that. So that's kind of what I've been working on. So let's get into news and discussion, my friend. So AOS Dominion goes on pre-order this Saturday. Daniel, I know you're a 40K player, but do you have any interest at all in Age of Sigmar? The 3rd edition, new editions of a game are always the best time to get into it. Do you have any interest in Age of Sigmar? Do you play Age of Sigmar? Have you played Age of Sigmar? What are your thoughts?
So I can unironically say I have owned more Age of Sigmar armies than I've played games of Age of Sigmar.
Oh, okay.
And neither of those numbers are 0, by the way. I absolutely love the models. Like I haven't been paying much attention because when I pay attention, I get wrapped up. Then I spend money. Then I want to play, and then I find out oh yeah, the double turn still exists, and oh yeah, there's weird soup rules that I don't want to take the time to understand. There's just the game just stays a little too weird for me. But like, dude, those models are just gorgeous. I love every Age of Sigmar model they release, except for like the weird vampire centaur. That one was weird, but all
Yeah.
the others have been great.
There was actually a lot more people than I thought that Vampire Centaur was awesome, and I was like, I don't know, I don't get it. I'm very tempted. I'm gonna wait and see. I'm not obviously gonna get the Dominion box because I don't like any of the models. Sorry, I think the sculpts are great. They're very technically well done. They're just not models that I want, right? So I don't like Stormcast in general. And again, it's not that I don't like the models. I think they're very nice models. They're not models that like I look at and I'm like, I want to paint that. You know, they don't have the kind of aesthetic that I like. So they're beautiful models, gorgeous set. But I'm just gonna wait for the rulebook, and then obviously I have a demon army basically, and I have a Bellicor. So hopefully I can kind of hobble together a decent demon force, enough just to get me some games. Maybe throw some of my Thousand Sun Zangors in there because I have a bunch of Tzeentch stuff. So maybe I can throw together like a Disciples of Tzeentch army with minimal effort, play some games and see if I like it. But ultimately, with this tournament season coming up and starting to heat up a bit, I'm going to probably focus a lot on that.
Yeah.
Germanin asks how much of the AOS Chaos stuff is usable in 40k. So all the demon stuff is usable for the most part. And then for the actual models, basically the only thing that I think really crosses over are Zangors for the Disciples of Tzeentch, and then the Zangor Skyfires and the guys on the discs. Nothing from Slaanesh, the new Slaanesh range crosses over. Nothing from the Nurgle range.
Freaking shame.
Nothing from the Nurgle range crosses over. Nothing from the Khorne range crosses over, I don't believe. Now, that could obviously change when we get a future World Eaters or Emperor's Children book, if we ever get them, which I don't think we will anytime soon. I think that's wishful thinking for all the people that keep saying that we're going to be getting it or it's coming. I'm like, no, it's not. There's literally no evidence that it's coming.
Yeah, we went through an entire edition without them even mentioning KDK. So.
Right. But I could definitely see them, for instance, like the Slangors that they have for AOS, right? If they ever do a Emperor's Children book, I could see those easily get moved over, whether they go straight over or with a sprue, like an additional 40k sprue, although they don't really need it because the Zangors with blades don't have anything particularly 40k on them.
The Zangor kit, they did give us chain swords and bolt pistols.
Right, but sorry, I'm saying if you use them as just Zangors with blades, then then like you don't need it, which is what I do because the bolt pistols are bad. Bolt pistols and chain swords, which is a shame. If they had Astartes chain swords, maybe we could talk. Yeah. But because that's essentially what the Zangor blades are. They're Astartes chain swords because they give you my AP1.
Yeah.
So who knows? But yeah, so I'm gonna wait and see. But yeah, good luck. There's already rulebook leaks coming out. I've been seeing lots of leaks from rulebooks. So, all right, Sisters of Battle. So, what are your thoughts initially on Sisters of Battle? The book is basically out at this point. And McKay, thanks for the follow, man. What do you think of Sisters of Battle? Obviously, you're painting Sisters of Battle, but yeah, what are your initial thoughts on the book, power level, how it's changed, etc.?
So, my opinion so far, and maybe there's a broken combo I haven't found yet or no one's found yet. I think they took the highest highs and brought them down a little bit, but then they elevated everything except for the battle tanks all the way up to a similar level. So like, it's not, I'll say it right now, I think it's, with Death Guard, most balanced book of 9th edition. It feels like you can basically put any unit on a dartboard, and whatever you hit will have a use in the list. It's not Dark Eldar levels of that, where it's like everything is undercosted. Like, it takes some thought and synergy to actually make 9th edition Sisters work well. But I feel like if you ask me about a unit, there's probably a scenario where I could say, yes, I want this in my list.
Right.
So like that's the summary of my thoughts so far.
Yeah, for me it feels like they took some of the most common and overtaken things, like 3 units of Retributors with multi-meltas and double Cherub. Like, they've toned those things down, which I think is good. They're more in line with other units, like heavy support choices. And then Things like obviously Repentia and Dominions and Zephyrim, they've been, or sorry, Seraphim and Zephyrim, they've been kind of toned down a bit. And it seems like some of the other things have gotten better. Overall, it feels like the book is more of a side grade and a shift. It seems like it's gotten more close combat-y, especially with Morgan Vall being so strong. And we're going to be talking about her later because our background topic for today's episode are the 12 High Lords of Terra, of which she is one. But overall, I do think it seems like a fairly balanced book. Like lots of different options, lots of different ways to play and build lists. So far, anyways. I mean, maybe in a month we look back and there's just basically one or two good builds and everything else just ends up being trash. I do think that, and this kind of comes back to your comment about the tanks. It's like Games Workshop doesn't know what to do with the Rhino chassis. It's like everything on the Rhino chassis is just inherently not good. Predators have been awful for a very long time. Rhinos are not great. Obviously, the tanks and the sisters aren't great. So it's like that whole chassis almost needs like a complete rethink on like how it works. Primark, thanks for following. So I just don't know what they're gonna do to it. Like it needs to be a lot cheaper, or a lot more stronger, or a lot faster, or something. Because right now, so here's actually a good example of what I think is inherently wrong with the Rhino. Do you know a Rhino has a giant hatch on the top, but is not open topped? What if they made Rhinos open topped? There's literally a giant hatch that opens like this on the top of the Rhino. Could they make them open topped? I think that would actually make them more useful because then you could have units inside that shoot out of them, and all of a sudden, I bet you see a lot more Rhinos. That's one of the reasons Raiders are so good, right?
Yeah, and actually, Sisters of Battle, early 8th edition in the Index, they had the
Repressor.
Yeah, Repressor. So many of those similar names.
Repressor, Dominator, Instigator, Castigator.
Rhino.
It's like you can't keep track.
A Rhino with some crappy Forge World bits. Suddenly it's open top and everybody's running it. Like it worked really well. Like that's exactly what you're describing. I think would be a great way to balance it. Another item and a discussion for vehicles as well is instead of just more wounds, why not increase the toughness? Like if Rhinos were toughness 8 instead of toughness 7 and Land Raiders were toughness 9, like how much would that change the dynamic of vehicles in the game?
Huge. I agree with something like that. And one of the things I talked about last week was that Games Workshop seems to like they have, especially when it comes to strength and toughness, right? So with some of the other stats, obviously there's movement's different, but like let's talk weapon skill, ballistic skill, whatever. It seems like Games Workshop is, obviously with weapon skill, ballistic skill, because they moved to a D6 system, obviously we're limited to 1 to 6, right? Mm-hmm. But like, and attacks, obviously you're limited, but like with strength and toughness, actually, you could rebalance the entire game around brand new values of strength and toughness. So instead of, say, for instance, the human stat line being a 3 across, what if it was like a 5 across, and your Space Marines were 7s, right? And your Grots were like 3s, right? And all of a sudden, it's like you have a huge amount of variance now in strength toughness across the game. But instead, because we're kind of stuck to this like paradigm of, well, strength 3, toughness 3 is a human. Well, how far much more, we have T5 orcs coming, but that still doesn't feel right to me, right? Like for me, the fact that an orc is slightly more tough than a Space Marine doesn't feel right. But it also doesn't feel right that a Space Marine is just slightly tougher than a Guardsman. So for me, it's like a Space Marine should be like toughness 5 and an orc should be like toughness 6. But then like, yeah, tanks should be toughness 8, toughness 9, toughness 10, toughness 11. Why not? Like, why not? There's no reason we can't have crazy toughness values. And then for strength values for weapons, we can modify them like proportionally as well, right? So now all of a sudden strength 9 las cannons are really good against rhinos, but your strength 7 like auto cannons, they're good against orcs, they're good against light vehicles. But I don't think, for me, a rhino is not a light vehicle. It literally looks like a brick of metal, right?
Yeah, exactly. It should be a lot tougher than a Raider, which is like a Star Wars boat that's just flying around with dudes hanging off the sides. Like, why is that only 1 toughness lower than a metal box designed to protect dudes in like super armor? Like, you got this slow trudging box to deliver a unit of just highly trained soldiers, or you have these like half-naked pirates on this sky ship, and somehow, right now in the game, statistically, they're the exact same difficulty to kill with like 80% of the weapons that people bring.
Yeah. And I just think, and and I mentioned it last week too, like things like the Land Raider with like they keep dropping the points, but just give it the fucking assault ramp rule. It's got a giant gaping assault ramp on the front, so allow the passengers to disembark after it moves. That would be a very simple rule that should revolutionize the use of Land Raiders and totally change that. Like if you could disembark from a Land Raider after it moved and assault, you'd see Land Raiders in lists everywhere. Right? And it's not, like, yeah. And it doesn't come down to just lowering the points, right? It's like you got to give it other things to make it useful.
Yeah, do something else, because with points, it's either it's not worth it, it's not worth it, it's not worth it. And then if it goes any lower than that, suddenly it's spammable and it's broken. Like the way that the rules are written, if that's all you do, you hit a point where eventually it's low enough and people have forgotten about it. You finally made it low enough and they're like, oh, hey, here it is. And it was probably balanced 2 or 3 points changes ago, but nobody was cared to try. And so you keep going and then it breaks the game and it restarts the whole cycle.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you added a rule, just one special rule, make units have unique rules if you want to see them on the table.
Yeah, and KPI makes a really good point. When you look at when we sub AV values, and I'm gonna say in 3rd edition because that was the last edition I played with AV values. But the thing about AV values is there's a huge range of them. Yeah. Right. So you had armor 14. You had armor 14 on your Land Raider, and you had armor. I don't know what the lowest armor value was. At 10, 9, whatever. But like, but even if let's say we don't go back to armor values. But let's say we sub out armor values for toughness. Right now, almost every vehicle in the game is either toughness 6 or toughness 7. And then there's very, very few examples where toughness 8. So imagine back in those editions where every vehicle is toughness armor value 10, 11, or 12. That's essentially what's happened. So what we could do is grow that range of toughness, just like armor values, and say you have some vehicles toughness 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All the way up to 10, maybe even 11, maybe even 12. Who knows, right? Maybe the... I don't know, Lehman Russes are all T9 and Land Raiders are T10, right? Like that would all of a sudden, it's like, wow, okay, now I'm starting to get how tough these vehicles are. And then it's just more wounds are not the answer. Because wounds, essentially especially with the way that the damage is scaling, like Cognos, everything's D3 plus 3 now. Like even having lots of wounds is not a protection anymore.
No, it's almost a detriment, because if you have a bunch of wounds, but it only takes 3 or 4 failed saves to pull you off the table, the best way to survive is to take less armor saves or take less invulnerable saves. So that comes right back to the toughness value. That's why transhuman is so strong, especially the lower toughness you are, the better transhuman gets for you. Sisters of Battle got it for toughness 3 infantry. Like suddenly... or Skatari also, toughness 3 infantry. Now you only win them on 4s. So your mass strength 5, strength 6, which is great into everything right now, because if toughness 8 is my highest toughness and I'm strength 5, at worst I'm wounding on 5s. And then I'm wounding almost everything else I care about on 3s. So it's like that 5 and 6 are such efficient attack profiles right now. If we expand the range of toughness, then it becomes really good at killing light infantry, good at killing medium infantry, and then good even against light vehicles, but then it sucks against heavy vehicles. Right now, a heavy bolter can be one of the best things to take out a Lehman Russ, because it's a cheap weapon with damage 2, where you get 9, 12 shots, something like that, and suddenly you just chipped off 6 or 8 wounds, especially with all the rerolls. Wounding on 5s rerolling is about the same as wounding on 3s. So that's like a heavy bolter with a reroll to wound is the equivalent of strength 9 against a Lehman Rust or something. Like, it's not hard to chew through vehicles because of strength 5 and 6 being so prevalent on offense. And again, multi-damage.
Yeah, absolutely. So hopefully, now this isn't, as with all things, we're not going to see a change this edition. This is kind of the way things are. So one can hope. If only there was a way. If only there was a way Games Workshop could update the rules universally across all the factions at the same time, and then give us those rules. They could make changes like these kind of broad changes, but I guess just no such technology exists. There's just no way that they can do it, unfortunately.
Yeah, there's no platform that you can update real time for other people to see. Like, especially, you could even, like, I don't know, have a comment board or a discussion, a little, like, suggestion box. That I wish that existed, man. Yeah, that'd be nice.
It's one thing that I do wish Games Workshop did more of, and actually we did see this with Sisters when they did the development. I'd love it if they did more public beta testing of stuff. Not necessarily army books, but of like
Mhm.
rules. Like I don't know why when when they're working on 10th edition, right? I don't know why all the cloak and dagger on rules changes on army books. I would love it, and if they ever move to a digital distribution model, how amazing would it be? And if you guys aren't catching it, we're being sarcastic. What we're saying is, Games Workshop, get off your fucking asses and get us a digital distribution model. How amazing would it be if on the lead up to a codex's rules, you had the books, and I say this every cast, no matter what show I'm on, I'm gonna kind of keep beating this dead horse. Imagine you had the for the purposes of just the rules, knowing that they're gonna be digital and they're gonna be released, they're gonna be tested all the way up to release because they can. Imagine having your alpha, maybe that's internal, and then doing like a beta test for 2 months where the rules are kind of, here's the beta rules, just like they did for deep striking. Remember how last in 8th edition we had a bunch of beta rules that were like not quite official, but then they made them official? That worked. That was like a great process, and they got feedback and they changed things, and that was something that was amazing. So imagine they did that for a codex where they're like, we're not going to release the book, or we're going to release the fluff and the painting and all that stuff separately, but for the data sheets and points, here's the essentially that part of the codex and the stratagems and the whatevers. Go beta test these, catch all the shit, and then there's a 3-month window, and then at the end of the 3 months, the rules are released, fully complete, fully updated, drama free. Like, you know, in tournaments maybe don't use the beta rules, but like you can, you know, and all this would solve so many problems. It's just can you guys just do it, please?
Yeah, and to piggyback off of that, you could even do like beta RTTs where it's designed, bring the beta books, practice it, and you can collect. We have all the data collection now thanks to the Falcon. We have so much data collection to balance factions. Like it's almost too obvious, and that's got to be why Games Workshop isn't doing it, because you could literally like the Art of War guys, they live in a house and play Warhammer 24/7. You don't think that they would figure out the broken combos and say, "Hey, Games Workshop, like here you go." And if they do that in a more public forum where they're showing it to people, there's an open discussion on it. Like there's so many communities. Not I just pick Art of War because they live 4 hours from me, but like all those communities could really play these books and find what's wrong with them. And then if it was a digital codex, and they could sell the hard copy with the art, lore, and all that stuff, but if you do it as a digital codex, then we don't have to wait 2 weeks for the FAQ, and then we don't have to wait for more and more and more. We play for 3 months. Hey, here's what we need. They can just get on there, have an intern type it up over the weekend, and then they release the new version, and then any relevant FAQs, and then it's tournament legal. It's stamped, ready to go. People have already been painting their armies. They know it's going to get changed, and you avoid things like Broviathan. You avoid things like what we're dealing with Dark Eldar. Like,
and the thing is, like,
it's a good idea. That's why they won't do it.
And and like the thing is, like, the reason that software companies do it is because, like, it's not like, here's the thing, if like I don't want to get into it. I agree with you. All I'm saying is it doesn't take a guys like the Art of War, as much as I love those guys. Any normal person can do that, and the more people you have involved, the better. And it doesn't like a lot of these things that are like that we catch. It's not like it's only caught by the most keen eyes. Like only the like top level tournament players are seeing this stuff. Some of the typos, combos, broken ass shit is so fucking obvious and basic that literally anyone with like a 3rd grade reading level and a calculator could sit there and figure that shit out in 2 hours of the book in their hand. So it's not like we need really high level players that like have like degrees in game theory to test all this stuff, and only them are going to be able to see this stuff. No, like literally anyone with like a monkey brain a monkey could probably figure out half this shit. You know, so it's like you have this huge amount of and they'll do it for free. That's the thing. Like that's the great thing is like your entire QA department is basically free, right? And that's
exactly
like, so yeah. All right.
And it's a few thousand people at least. Like you're gonna find stuff. It's but
here's the thing. So Dermanon says he would devalue the physical codex, and yeah, you're right. But we're in 2021. I don't want a physical codex. Do you know how much Games Workshop is gonna get from me for the Sisters of Battle Codex? $0. Do you know how much for the AdMech dollars? $0. if they had all that stuff on and we're going to see June 23rd, Warhammer Plus, they're going to reveal the other components of it. And I said, if Games Workshop puts out in tandem with Warhammer Plus, as part of your membership, you also get digital rules distribution. I will fucking pay them. I will pay them $15 a month, every month, for a high level digital rules distribution that is updated regularly, that is official, that has my codexes, all the codexes that I don't have to pay on top of, and have some archaic old piece of shit book that I'm going to keep. I will pay them for that service. And maybe the people that get the beta access to these rules are part of Warhammer Plus. Like, it's to get early beta access, whatever. It doesn't matter. Not that that's going to stop people from just distributing. But the point is, you can make more money. This is what I'm saying. It's actually not just a bad service decision to have to make me buy books. It's a bad business decision. You're literally leaving money on the table. If Games Workshop transitioned to a fully digital model, like a subscription service, where I could pay a monthly fee to get access to all the rules, right? That would get regularly updated, regularly reviewed. Maybe we get chapter approves every 3 months, right? 4 times a year. And we get like regular rules updates and FAQs every 3 months. And it's all digitally done. I would pay $15 a month for that. And over the course of edition, I worked it out a few casts ago. That's around $600, right? That's like $500 more than I spend on codexes per edition. Because normally, I'm gonna buy two to three codexes max in edition, right? Max. The rest, guess what? Yeah. And when they had digital books, like I have, and I've said this before, all the books are available digitally right now for free. You can go get them. You can go to wikipedia.ru, and literally every rule is there already, and it's actually very well organized. There's literally, I couldn't believe, because I haven't really spent a lot of time on there. I went there the other day when I was looking for a stratagem, and the thing is organized by this phase that you use the stratagem. There's like a pregame stratagem. There's like a movement phase stratagem section. I was like, holy shit, this is so intuitive. It's so nicely organized. And then I opened my GW book, and the fucking stratagems for different phases, different units, it's like 14 pages. Like, it's just so poorly laid out. And I was like, wow, whoever's managing this site, the Russians, I presume, they're doing a fantastic job. So I would highly encourage you to vote with your wallet and not buy things like, and look at chapter approved and the field manual. Those should have been free. Those should have been absolutely free. They're like a patch for the game. So anyways, I could talk about this for another 2 hours. So we got to move on. Okay, so we saw new Tanith rules for the 40k Tanith first and only. First of all, Daniel, have you read any of the Gaunt's Ghost book? Because I feel like I love Dan Abnett. He's one of my favorite 40k authors, but I've never read a single Gaunt's Ghost book. Have you read any of them or listened to any of them?
No, the only reason I even heard about them was because the model release, and then Will Taylor, one of my best friends, he for some reason just likes Imperial Guard way too much, and so he got all excited and was like talking about it and stuff. I got no idea. I don't know anything about them, but they look cool. Yeah.
So basically, they're from the Forest World of Tanith, I believe. If I'm correct, they are basically, so the models that they released are, from what I understand, so there's like 7 or 8 novels. He's been writing them for a long time, and this set is set like in the like first or second book. It's quite early because basically they're humans, so a lot of them die over the course of the series. It's very Game of Thrones-esque, the Gaunt's Ghost series. A lot of the like characters die throughout the series. And then like some females are added later, so these are all men at this point. But I know like they add there's a bit more diversity in the crew. The models are amazing, and obviously we also got the Cadian upgrade sprue. But I guess the big elephant in the room is, why the fuck are we not getting just updated guardsmen? And how do you feel about the fact that the Cadian upgrade sprue, it's pretty expensive. Let me just pull up the price here. It's something it's
25 or $30 or something.
Is it a new release or is it a pre-order?
That is a good question.
A pre-order.
Okay.
I think.
No, it's just Sisters, and they're giving us our Lord Festilis back.
Okay, but I did get an email from my LGS today for pre-orders, so let me just pull that up. Strategies and games and hobbies. Okay, so oh no, it's not in there. Anyways, I know it's quite expensive. Do you think this is going to be a trend where we're going to start seeing more upgrade sprues for old kits? Like, say, the Catachin kit, which is absolutely awful and definitely needs a full resculpt. Or do you think this was kind of like a bone that they threw Yeah. What do you think? What do you think? What do you think this means? I guess like, where do you see this going? Because like, for me, when I look at the guard range, you have Cadians and Catechins. Those are really the only ones in plastic, right? Obviously, some of the, like as far as like core troops, the Cadians are obviously now not getting an upgrade sprue. Which, to be fair, their whole fucking planet got blown up. Hashtag Abaddon. Hashtag Despoiler. My boy. So I'm happy that they're not getting new models because they're all fucking. They're supposed to be all dead, right? But Catechins are not dead, and they have been getting a drip of new character models over the last 3 or 4 years. So do you think we're finally going to see like a brand new Catechin box?
I certainly hope so.
Through?
Because aren't Catechins are still old metal, right? Like
no,
they gotta make them plastic, or are Catechins plastic now? Or
so the main guardsmen are plastic, and they've been plastic.
Yeah.
That kit, I believe, that kit's at least 20 years old because I remember buying that kit. Let me see here.
Catechin. I'm looking at the Catechin Jungle Fighters specifically.
Yeah, I know the guys. I gotta show you this picture of the sprue.
Yeah, that is plastic.
I'll throw it on here. Does this work? Yeah, this works. Okay, so check out this sprue, guys. This is what Games Workshop. This is what the sprues used to look like when they were hand. So what they used to do is they take the green stuff, they'd sculpt in green stuff, they'd chop it up, and then they literally lay it down on the machine. And because it was done by hand, the sprues were this empty. They looked like very, very like sparse. Like they look basically empty. Compare that to, let me see a modern day sprue. Let's look at a compare that to one of these sprues. The good ones are the Necromunda ones. So look at this sprue. Like these guys here. Compare that to this sprue. I don't know if you guys can see that.
A little bit different.
Yeah. So like it's pretty sad, like the difference. Oh, that's not working. Anyways, you guys can see what I'm talking about. The amount of detail on these sprues is actually crazy. Let's see here. Anyways, that's enough of that. So with that said, yeah, what do you think we're gonna get?
So it's hard to say. I feel like they're probably just teasing guard players and like giving them just enough to stay interested. But I would hope if they do revisit guard a little bit more. I want new Catechins because like just looking at the faces of those models, they're terrible. Like they're absolutely horrendous.
Yeah.
And then when you put it side by side with the Scions, Militarum Tempestus, like those are really good looking models. Like I'd love to play Scions. I would hate to be a Catechin player. So I hope that they bring that range up to more of the Scion level for the actual infantry. But honestly, like the tanks kind of don't need it. Like I could maybe see them giving us a couple variants, but like I think the Lehman Russ is just iconic. It makes sense. It doesn't really need any upgrades. So maybe give us some upgraded infantry. Maybe our buddies with the gas masks make them feel at home again. But
yeah, I'd love to see some. I don't think it'd be that hard. So given how packed the sprues are these days, like how much bits they put on them, I don't think it'd be too hard to do a sprue where it's like a body, a flak jacket, and a pants with either a bare arm set and a jacketed arm set. So depending on whether you want to go Catechin or like say another regiment, you get either a cloth arm or a bare arm. And then there's like maybe 3 sets of head. You got a gas mask head, you get a Catechin head, and you get like say a Praetorian head, the pointy help or something, or Death Corps or Krieg or something, right? Or Valhallans, right? You get the little turbans for the what were they? The Talarans, right? They get little turbans, right?
Yeah.
So you could very simply, and again, I'm not a 3D designer, do a single sprue with like say 1 set of legs, 1 set of torsos, but then with the arms and the head and then accessories, have it be maybe 2 to 3 different actual regiments, right? Like I don't think that'd be that hard because when you look at the amount of extra bits you get on a lot of sprues, like look at the incursor sets, there's so many extra bits now that I don't think it's like asking for too many bits. You're asking literally for like 5 extra sets of arms and 5 extra sets of, and like 15 heads per box, for instance. Say if you do, 30 heads instead of say 10 or something like that. So I don't think it's that crazy.
there's perfect precedents for it too in the Battle Sister squad. It's $60 for 10 Battle Sisters, but you can build them as the Celestians, which are just basically different helmets, Dominions, which are basically the exact same model but with different special weapon allowances, and then they gave us a whole slew of special weapons, and it's 10 models for $60.
Yeah.
Like right now, your guard squads, you getting 5 or 10 models for 35, like the Steel Legion, $35
Sorry guys, I
for
got
a
some
squad.
allergies.
But you could make those squads $50-$60, but give people a ton of options, and I mean, you'd make guard players happy, and you would print your own money.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
All right.
real fast, can I
Go ahead.
give you my pipe dream that they won't do, but I would love it?
Hit me with it.
I want a dual kit of Imperial Guard and Renegade
Oh,
Guard.
dude, don't turn me on like that, Danielle.
I mean, how sweet would that be? And you get like an upgrade frame, so maybe there's like one Lehman Russ, and it comes with a mini game where you play with your buddy, and you like your like little guardsmen and spiky guardsmen are fighting to like steal this. Like you're defending the Lehman Russ from the spiky guard, and they go try to steal it, and that's how you and your friend can determine who gets the tank. Like
Yeah.
that would be such a fun box set.
Absolutely. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I don't have much hope. Look. Would I love Renegade Guard? Sure. Give me Corn Berserkers and Plastic Noise Marines before that, please. And like, look, there already is Renegade Guard in the Blackstone set. So if I don't know how hard it is to take those files and recut them on new sprues. It's something that we really haven't seen them do in the past. Like, but they could easily take that. Yeah, you can buy that.
Get that right now.
For sure, you can. So, but the thing is, it's isn't it? It's quite expensive, and it comes with all the
Yeah, it does.
It comes.
With all the
You have to pay
dude.
for all the. Let me just see here. Blackstone Fortress. What would it be? Box games. Warhammer Quest.
Blackstone.
Is it Warhammer Quest?
It is. Yeah, Warhammer Quest, Blackstone Fortress. I don't see. Well, maybe it's just because of what I searched. But yeah, that box is out, but it does come with all of the extra stuff.
Yeah.
And
so they could release it with kind of on a solo. I guess a solo pack, just the sprues, potentially.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see here. Yeah, I don't know where it might be, but all right, let's talk. One thing I did want to bring up, and I'm not sure your thoughts on this, but I was thinking a lot about the chapter proved, and I don't know if this is that important, but obviously when chapter proved came out, they said that the Thousand Sons and the Sisters, Thousand Sons and the Grey Knights points are the new points, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because those books were supposed to be out. But then I thought to myself, well, that doesn't make sense, because if Sisters and Orcs are supposed to be out before Thousand Sons and Grey Knights, wouldn't those points also be the new points in the chapter approved? Because those books also would have been out, right? Right. But the points of Sisters of Battle and the unit entries of Sisters of Battle and the Orc points and unit entries are all for the old book, which got me thinking. I was like, maybe because of COVID, the release order was switched, because I think there's a potential that Grey Knights and Space Wolves were supposed to be out in time for that chapter proved, but potentially Orcs and Sisters were going to be a summer release. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like the way that, because as far as I'm concerned, if Grey Knights and Thousand Sons were supposed to have the new rules in chapter proved, then so should have Sisters. And what we see is that all the Sisters rules don't have any of the new unit entries, neither for the Orcs. So why is that the case? Because those books should have also been out. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So it seems to me that maybe the book order got switched at some point.
I think it had the new Sisters points, but not the new Orc points. Now the big thing, my thought process is the Sisters models. I think they started production on before COVID. Orcs, I think, were going to be produced during COVID. Thousand Sons are getting one new model. Grey Knights, I haven't even seen if they're getting a new model. It's a lot easier for the book to go to
Infernal
print.
Master is the new
And
model we're getting,
yeah,
and I assume it's just gonna look like a fucking sorcerer or a exalted
yeah,
champion, and
yeah.
do
Maybe he's gonna have like
yeah,
extra skulls.
it's gonna do something really stupid like the Lord of Violence, and I'm gonna be mad that they wasted it.
Yeah.
When all I really want is like, yeah. Anyways, that's a whole other show.
Yeah.
Continue.
So
Sorry.
you're good. So I think what happened is it was supposed to be Orcs and Sisters, and then we were supposed to get Grey Knights, Thousand Sons. I think they were able to keep Sisters in stride because most of their production was already done, just with the normal shipping delays and stuff. And then again, because it was just print, their print is obviously easier than all the new plastic, all the new kits and everything. So instead of delaying all of their releases until Orcs came out, they just kind of had like 6 things stacked, and they just picked Orcs, slid them to the back and dropped them back in and shifted everything up. And I think they made that decision before chapter approved, but I don't know, distribution has been weird. I don't know. It was probably chapter approved was written before the boat got stuck in the canal. That's my guess.
Yeah, that's interesting. So we'll have to see. You know what comes out. I'm not. I don't know. Given the Death Guard release, I'm just like, I'm just like pessimistic. And given what we've seen in the Codex for the new points, the fact that there's so little change, like so many of the points for say Thousand Sons, obviously there's a small bump for Scarab Occults and on rubrics, given their initial wounds. But given how few changes we've seen in the points, I'm very pessimistic that we're going to see much change in the book. Now, I could be wrong. You know, maybe we get a whole bunch of stratagems that really like and keywords and buffs and all that stuff. But I was really hoping that we'd have a better insight as to like, I don't know. I thought we'd see more points changes that would help kind of key in what's gonna be good. But Magnus is the exact same points. All the demon engines are similar to the Death Guard, right? But are they gonna get some version of disgusting? Like Death Guard ones have DR, so it's like, what's going on there?
What do I get for being?
What do I get for being the same point? So we'll see. All right.
Yeah, my can I give you a
go ahead.
30-second theory on that? So if they follow the Sisters release, I think they'll try to leave a lot of the rules the same. Keep our powerful stuff powerful, like Ahriman, Demon Princes, etc. Well, that's basically it. But
that's all the book is. That's all the book's ever been for the whole edition.
So my hope is in getting the extra wound for the Scarab Cults and the Thousand Sons themselves, the rubrics. My hope is their points go up a little, their wounds obviously go up, but they get either better stratagems. I could definitely see like a permanent transhuman for Thousand Sons, similar to Dark Angels. I could see them getting rules that would make them worth the current points cost and elevate them to the already good stuff. So instead of nerfing Ahriman and buddies, if we can elevate the rest and kind of get the whole book on the same level, that would be enough. Like I don't need that my Thousand Sons army to be S plus best army in the game. I just want to be able to take pure Thousand Sons and be respectable like I can with Death Guard. And I have some hope that they do that because the points didn't change much for Sisters, but they got well balanced. I'm hoping it's the same thing for the Thousand Sons.
Yeah, I think so. My two, my 3 things for Thousand Sons that I'm gonna be really looking at is what is the Legion rule gonna be, and who is it gonna apply to? Because right now the 6 inches is great, but it applies to 4 models in your army. So are we gonna get an actual Legion trait that applies to rubrics, Thousand Sons, Zangor, something, right? So that's my first thing. Is it gonna be decent? It's not just gonna be extra range, because I actually don't think that's a great one. What are the spell lists going to be? So are we going to get like, and a big question too is because Chaos Space Marines are not out, are we going to get the first look at the new Dark Hereticus, or are they not going to have access to Dark Hereticus anymore? Are they going to have their own bespoke? Maybe they have 1 or 2 or 3 bespoke spell lists. So that'll be a big indicator of where they're taking the faction, and a big thing that I'm interested to see. And third, how does the how do the non-playable units change? So I'm talking Zangor Skyfires. I'm talking the Mutalith Vortex Beast, which we never see. And then to a lesser extent, things like, like the rubric rules. So how do those core units change to make them playable? Because right now, you never see Zangor elements, really. The flying ones anyways. And you never really see the Mutalith, which is supposed to be part of it. And obviously things like Predators, we talked about earlier. Predators, Land Raiders are basically a non-starter. You're not going to still see those. So they're not even units that I count as part of the book. They're just like filler pages, which leaves you kind of with Magnus. It looks like we're not getting any new units based on that, right? I would have loved to have seen, I don't know, why can't we have a Lord Discordant in there? Why can't we have, I don't know, like Obliterators? There's no real reason we can't have them. Like people, I always hate this like thing where it's like, oh, there's like a background reason. You know what? I could literally write a 30-second story tomorrow about how Belisarius Call has finally cracked how to make female Space Marines, and in a single half paragraph, completely overturned 30 years of Space Marine lore. And if I wrote a good story about it, no one would give a fuck. They'd say, okay, cool, female Space Marines, let's go. And so then people saying, oh, there's a lore reason. It's like, no, like the lore is what they write. So if they wanted to write a lore piece that basically said, hey, they've, just like they did in the Death Guard book, they're like, they discovered a forge world with 1,000 predators on it. So now they have predators. That was literally how they got predators. Someone wrote a fucking story and said, hey, they found a bunch of predators, so now they're predators. They could just easily write a story on how Magnus has been spending time reforging rubrics into a new form. How he's discovered new arcane lore from the Black Library. How they've rediscovered a lost cult of the Thousand Sons that was like lost a millennium ago. Whatever, guys. Like literally, you can make up whatever the fuck you want to justify whatever the fuck you want. And so when people are like, "Oh, there's a lore reason they can't have that," I'm like, "No, go, shut up," because there's new units that are invented literally for armies every day that we've never heard about before ever. And people are like, "Oh,
we're literally getting one in the Thousand Sons book."
There's a lore reason. It's like, no, guys, the purpose of the lore is to justify the things that we get. So when they want to add a new unit to like Space Marines, like Centurions didn't exist 15 years ago. Primaris didn't. The whole Primaris thing is literally a lore thing, right? They're like, oh, we want to add a whole new set of Space Marines, so we'll just write a story and that's it. Move on. And so the fact that people are like, oh yeah, there's lore reasons they can't have this stuff. I'm like, well then just make a lore reason why they can have it. Hey, guess what? Yeah. The rubric is solved. Airmen solved the rubric. Guys, regular Thousand Sons they still have the automatons, but now they have a bunch of new Space Marines that are not automatons. Like, guys, it's not that hard. It's not that hard. And if the Games Workshop wanted to, they could easily do it. They could easily add anything they wanted to the list and grow the range from existing stuff. Like, I'd love it if we got Possessed back, right? What happens, guys? Let me ask you a lore question, since we love the lore. What happens to Thousand Sons when the flesh change happens? What do they turn into, Daniel?
I love Thousand Sons. I don't know.
So the flesh change is the curse of the Thousand Sons that literally caused Airmen to cast the rubric. And what happens is they literally turn into Chaos Spawn. That's why we have special rules for Chaos Spawn, right? But what if? Okay. Right? That's why we have like, I don't know if that's why we have special rules for them, but the flesh change is like essentially the corruption in their gene seed that caused Airmen to initially cast the rubric and wipe them all out, because essentially the whole legion was going to succumb to this flesh change and turn into like spawn. But what if there's an intermediate step? What if Magnus managed to stop the flesh change at some point for a lot of these sorcerers, and now all of a sudden, guess what? Thousand Sons have possessed. Oh my god, it's so magnificent. It's beautiful. I love it. All right. Anyways, you get my point. All right.
It's also literally the god of change. Like, you just go make a deal with him, and he can just snap his fingers. Yeah, here you go. They
literally can control time. Like, come on. Like, you're telling me that they can't add new units? So
yeah, Magnus just like, hey man, I need some help, and then Zinch just snaps fingers. Here's your help.
Yeah, it's like your boy Zinch, man. He's here for you. So all right. Before we get into my rant, because I feel like I just did a rant, so I need a minute to calm down. Let's talk, and this is where I want you to kind of lead the conversation, Danielle. So you're
Oh
going
boy.
in, and this is something that we've seen a little bit at the ACO this weekend. So the ACO is this weekend, Atlantic City Open. Good luck to all our friends there, Richard, John, Nick, and all the rest, everyone else that's going.
Tons of
Those are
Brohammer dudes.
some Brohammer guys. Good luck, everyone that's going, and have fun. I shouted out a bunch of people that I knew that were going last week, so on Monday's show, but definitely looking forward to seeing how that event goes. But one of the things that is a little bit annoying, and I think me and you probably are less caring about the results, is that it's already old. It's already obsolete. The meta, the results, the outcomes, the all the theory crafting after, all the meta adjustment after this event is basically pointless because A, the Drukhari nerf is not in effect, and B, the AdMech book is not in effect. So between those two things, and then the Sisters book is hot on the heels. So between those three things, in about 3 weeks' time, the entire meta will have completely shifted, will be completely different. So this event, being the first kind of super major in the US, is essentially not meaningful in any way as far as determining the meta, the true meta. Now, obviously, there will be some learnings as far as, hey, what chaos? Someone's gonna ask, what chaos list did well? What is fucking Nathan running? What is, like who's doing well with orcs? Those things obviously will still be applicable. But when it comes to literally the 3 best factions in the game at the moment, I think AdMech, Sisters, and Drukhari, those are all getting a huge shakeup. And the TOs made a conscious decision not to adopt the FAQ, right? Which I thought was a bad one in a lot of ways, and I'll get into my reasons. But what are your thoughts on it, Daniel, and what do you think? And you keep talking. I'm just gonna step off the camera for a sec.
Yeah, for sure. So essentially, my thought is, I don't think the TO has faith in his community. So a lot of players, their armies weren't greatly affected by the FAQ, so they're just going to bring the same list they're going to bring. The players who were affected by the FAQ, I promise you, 80 to 90% of them are not interested in playing something that's irrelevant. If it was the week before, that's one thing. But you have 3 weeks lead time. I get some armies you're going to have to change the paint style. You might even have to resubmit a new list, a new army even. Like, some people might have to do that. But honestly, you got to trust your player base and understand that the competitive players want the most current rules possible. And we're reasonable people. Like, they understand 2 weeks is as close as you can get. If it's 13 days, we got to have the hard cutoff. But it was, I think, 3 weeks, right? They had a whole extra week. You got to just trust the player base, let the player base speak and tell you what they want. Like, again, 80% of the players there, their list probably didn't change much. Maybe they got a couple points down, a couple points up. You got to drop a single Terminator from a squad, or you get to add, I don't know, 50 points of Orc Boys. Like, that, cool, great, whatever. Orc players have those Orc Boys painted up already. It's not a big deal. So I'm always a fan of play the most current rule set that is practically possible. And they didn't do that, and I think it's a big miss.
Yeah, and I agree with you. So first of all, I think 3 weeks or whatever they had is a long time in our game. I think there's a few bigger issues here which I think need to be fixed, not just by the TOs but by GW. First of all, in 8th, we had a reasonable expectation of when we'd get FAQs. Reasonable. Now, whether or not they ever actually hit those deadlines is a whole saga in and of itself. But we knew, I think this was around the first chapter approved when 8th came out. They're like, guys, we're going to do 2 FAQs a year, one in spring, one in fall. We're going to do a points update at chapter approved, whatever. And then maybe a small balance pass somewhere in the summer. So as TOs and tournament players, we knew that these things were happening. And guess what? A lot of TO tournaments that were in and around those dates. So they were like, hey, we think the FAQ is going to be out in March. So we're going to say, for this event, that's say the second week of April, we're going to wait till the very last minute because we know that there's probably an FAQ coming in March. And so we want to make sure that the rules are as updated as possible. And so although normally we'd like a 4-week cutoff, because we know that FAQ is going to drop within this kind of range, we're going to let everyone know, hey guys, list submission is going to be like a week before, and we're going to try to do our best to use those rules. So Games Workshop hasn't done that. They haven't communicated when we're going to get this FAQ. In fact, they dropped it on like a random Tuesday or something like that with like very little like fanfare, very little announcement. So that was one thing. So that I think on a Games Workshop side is something that they need to get back to, is like, hey, we want a roadmap. We want to know when these books are coming, when the FAQs are going to be coming, and what the plan is. Are we still getting a 2-week after FAQ? Because I haven't seen an FAQ for Book of Rust. And I know for a fact, talking to Tom Adriani, who's one of the guys that playtests, they submitted a set of FAQs for Book of Rust the same time as the Drukhari FAQ, right? On top of that, don't forget, the original Drukhari FAQ was very minimal. Everyone was like laughing. I don't know if you remember that came out. They're like, we were like, that's it. So
it was like the original Iron Hands FAQ.
Right. But the thing is like, did Games Workshop did not decide the day before they dropped that FAQ that they're going to make Drukhari adjustments. I think they probably knew within a week of that adjustment or that book coming out that they probably are going to look at it. They should have come out and said it. They said, hey guys, we hear you. We know that there's some concerns about the power level of Drukhari. We're going to take a hard look at it. We're not going to make a move right away. We're not going to drop something tomorrow out of quickly. We want to see a little bit more data, maybe another few weeks of data. We want to talk to the playtesters. We want to think about a few different ideas, but we will be making some sort of tweaks to the book. We recognize it's fucked up. That's all it takes. That little bit of communication would have gone a long way. Now, as far as the go ahead.
To jump all the way back to earlier in the episode, if let's just say the Drukhari release, if that would have been the beta we had talked about, it was out for about 3 months. They didn't ham-fist the FAQ. They surgically popped the things that were the biggest issue and left the book at still an S+ level.
Which
but
I still think
it was
is.
about absolutely. And so it took like 3 months to really hone in on the most abusive things, figure out what needs to be corrected, what needs to be taken away, and then now should be the official release, and we have a very strong, good book. So it all ties in. What we're seeing in practice is what all they would have to do is just communicate a little bit better, which is your main point, and make the rules more available. And then instead of tournament players being pissed off for 3 months and wanting to quit the game, you'd have had great, we're playtesting and our tournament scene is unaffected. And now we're releasing this very strong book that people are prepared for into the meta. Right. And it would have made a lot more sense.
And another thing it does is it takes away this. There's like a lot of, I guess, controversy around playtesters winning tournaments and being involved in tournaments. So it takes away that. It removes that.
Oh, 100%.
It completely removes, like, and look, I don't actually really believe that, like, Brian Pullen or some of the UK playtesters, like Stephen Box, like, all of a sudden, they have these massive advantages. I don't believe that. The only advantage I think they normally get is that they get a jump start on the purchasing of models and painting of models.
Yeah, they'll own the models, and that's about it.
And that can obviously, if you care about having like a high standard army, that can definitely cause, like, especially because, hey, like, I bought a Mutal Vortex Beast. You're hearing it now, guys. They're gonna all sell out because they're gonna be so good in the new book. But like, if I was a playtester and all of a sudden I bought my 3 and then they sold out, this, like, as soon as that preview for the Mutal Vortex Beast came out, they sold out. Now none of the other top players can get them, and I have my 3 already, and I'm gonna go clean up my tournaments. That's a problem too. But when it comes to actually like the game part, like do I think that Stephen Box or Brian Pullen or like Brad Chester. Now, Brad Chester's just a really good player. There's a reason he went to the LVO finals last year, right? He's an incredibly good player. He plays a lot. Now, do I think Sean Naden, who's not a playtester and is basically like in the same area and they like have a podcast together, do I think he probably gets an advantage or advanced info? 1,000% he does. There's no way you can convince me that Sean Naden or some of the Art of War guys, which I know, don't get stuff. Like, that's just, I don't believe it. I don't believe you if you tell me that. If you say that, like, if you say Brad Chester, who's on the Art of War, never tells any of the Art of War guys anything advanced about anything that he learns about playtesting, I will call you a liar. Now, Richard's told me that they've never asked for it. He's very political in the way that he said it to me. He says, we've never asked Brad for anything. And I believe that too, but you sure as shit, fucking Brad's probably told them stuff voluntarily. Okay. Now that's a whole nother issue. Let's get to the, so I think it solves that issue, but let's get to the actual TO part. Ultimately, they could have polled the players, right? And I think if you polled the 256 players, I think the majority of them, because they're competitive and a lot of them are traveling, would probably poll 70 to 80%. Yes, let's use the new rules. Let's use the new FAQ. Because guess what? Anyone that's not Drukhari, which is the majority, want the new rules. And then, right? So almost that's probably like 90% of the base, because they're non-Drukhari players, right? And then for a lot of the other players, a lot of the clarifications, a lot of the cleanup, that's generally, maybe the Chaos players might say no because of the warp time nerfs, but that probably is a wash, right? The Drukhari say no, and the Chaos players say no. That's maybe 20% of your field, right? Almost everyone else is probably universally yes. But even the Chaos players, I'd rather play Drukhari now with the nerfs than with my old warp time and not the nerfs. Because I still have a better chance. I still have a better chance post warp time nerf than I do pre warp time nerf. So I think overall your players want it too.
Didn't go up.
Yeah, and your players want it too. And I think as a tournament circuit, we need to be more flexible and say, hey, look, this is a risk of playing. Like, look, just like when you buy the new flavor of the month thing, so all the people that bought liquefiers, who I have no sympathy for, are now nerfed. They knew going into that there's a risk that this would happen. No one's like, oh my god, I can't believe liquefiers got nerfed. What an insane thing. No one saw that coming. So you had all these players go out and buy liquefiers, spend money, whatever, and the liquefiers got nerfed. Just the same, you have all these players that are going to buy tickets to tournaments, plane tickets, hotels, and there might be something that comes along that also causes them hardship, whether it's that or causes them to like feel like they've wasted money because now maybe their super broken army is not as good and now they feel like they've wasted money. Either way, that happens. So no matter what, there's always going to be someone that is put out in a bad place. But when you want to play competitively, this is the cost of that. This is part of that. This is just like I have to have a WYSIWYG mod army that is battle ready to get my points. Just like I have to have my army list in time. These are all parts of that. When you sign up to go to a tournament, this is what you're essentially agreeing to, that these kinds of things could happen. Now, do I want them to happen? No, but it's something that you just have to agree. You just have to understand it could happen. And a lot of these players who are like, oh, crocodile tears, like, poor me, they changed my list 2 weeks before, what am I going to do? It's like, dude, like, figure it out. Like, this is the risk of playing tournaments. And if you don't like it, if you're not willing to take those risks, hey, guess what? You don't have to play in tournaments. It's not a forced thing. So,
yeah. And so a little bit of a add-on discussion to that. I think part of the issue is we have Games Workshop trying to pick up the competitive scene and say, we're going to standardize it. We're going to give you the missions. We're going to do all of this stuff. It comes back to the communication. We don't have a release date. We don't know when these things are going to drop. Like Star Wars Legion, I think is probably one of the most competitively balanced games. My favorite thing that they do is they say our release date for this unit is July 17th. There's a 2-week period from the release. They are just illegal. You cannot use them, even though it's released for 2 weeks. And then everybody knows on this date, I have to deal with this unit. You have the rules in advance. You know when it's going to be. Their Asmodee or whatever, they announce a month in advance, we're releasing this unit on this date. 2 weeks from that, it's legal. You have plenty of time, so you don't ever have this issue in Legion because there's communication.
Right.
40K, you have to understand, you don't get that communication from Games Workshop. So if you want to play competitively, you want to be on the edge of everything, you want the most competitive advantage possible, without perfect knowledge, your only other option is adaptability. And it's true in the game, it's true around the game. So be adaptable. Tournament organizers, be adaptable. Players, be adaptable. Guess what? If it gets nerfed, you can't get your stuff painted in time. That sucks. Play something else. Like I have lists due in 2 weeks for an entire Sisters of Battle army I didn't even know I needed until like this week. Either I get it done or I don't. I accept that. That's part of playing this game competitively. And guess what? I'm going to get it done because I've been playing competitively for so long. I know what it takes. And that's what I'm going to do because that's my priority in this game.
Yeah, and like the funny thing is, and if you really think about it, the players who are actually in the running to win that event. So let's say at ACO, right? 256 players, let's say. Of that 256 players, there's maybe 8 to 10 people that are attending that have an actual legitimate chance of winning that event. And then there's 240-ish players that have zero chance of winning. They're going to go 5 and they're not. So there's the top 8. So let's say the top 8, right? You have your top 8 to 12 players that could potentially make the top 8 that could potentially win the event. Then you have everyone else. Now, for those 8 to 12 players, I bet you 100% of them want to be playing in the most up-to-date meta and would actually care that the games and tournament that are playing where is the most updated meta. I bet you 100% of them would want to be playing with the new FAQ. Now the other
They want a new
240,
Sisters book.
yeah. Now the other
They would want a new
240,
Sisters book, which
yeah,
comes out that weekend.
exactly. Of the other
Go ahead.
240, you guys are not going to win anyways. So like, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I'm just being honest. You're not going to win anyways, which means relax. If there's a change and your list is not as good, hey, don't sweat it, man. You weren't going to win anyways. Maybe instead of going 5-1, you go 4-2. Okay, cool. But like, you know, that sucks. But like, it's not a win. It's not like your event that you were going to win is now ruined because of this thing. You were not going to win. You were going to go 4-2 or 5-1 or 3-3 or whatever. And now that your record might change a game, and that sucks. But you know, make adjustments to your list. So I just, for me, it's like, and then here's the big, to put it all together. There's two things that I really don't like about this. So for me, there's a big difference between FAQ and errata. So the errata is, and just to be clear on the audience, the errata is Games Workshop has gone and changed the writing of the rules in the rule book. So there's a bunch of blue writing in the, we just call it the FAQ, but it's actually two parts. It's an FAQ, which is frequently asked questions, clarifications, and then errata. The errata is like, hey, replace this with this. This was how it used to be written. This is how it's now written to be clear. But the FAQ is like, hey, we have a question. Can you answer the question? And a lot of times that doesn't mean that they changed any rules. So in the case of like, say for instance, there's probably lots in there I could find them. There's like lots of times where someone just asks a question. They're like, hey, how does this work? That's
Tome of Malkador, the psychic Space Marines. That's
right.
A
So
great
Tome of Malkador,
example.
it's like, this is the way that it's written, and we're not changing anything. We're just clarifying the way that it should work so that you're not playing the rule wrong. The rule that already exists that we're not changing. I think those should be in effect because essentially they're not actually changing anything that didn't already exist. They're just saying, and now if I'm a TO and that comes up in a game, say a sticky situation where someone asks that question, am I supposed to pretend that I don't know the answer? Or if I had said originally I had ruled it one way, and I know that's wrong now, should I ignore that? Should I pretend that doesn't exist? Like how that's so stupid. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And then on top of that, so the second part of that ridiculousness is the ACO went and issued their own FAQ for Drakari 2 days before and made the Drakari players change their list. Like what?
And were there restrictions on how they changed the list? Because the lists were live. Everyone could read everything. So I'm a Drakari player. Suddenly I have perfect knowledge of the meta. So I'm just going to, you know what? I found out I didn't like this aspect. Maybe I wanted more Chronos because I see X. So they can completely change their list because they have more competitive knowledge than everyone else. It completely destabilized the competitive integrity of that event.
So like if you're going to not only like, and the funny thing is that FAQ that they put out was not covered in the GW FAQ. It was like there's some other path that they got there. But you'd think that they would be like, okay, well, at this point, everyone can just change their lists. And we're just going to allow the FAQ. Like, fuck it.
Yeah.
So,
but doing it 2 days before, some people might have already started driving. So it's like their army's loaded up and they're already gone. Like,
yeah,
if you're
totally
going to be wishy-washy as soon as it comes out. Don't like, no, we're not going to do it. We're not going to do it. I'm punting. 2 days before. You know what? I thought about this and now we're going to do it. Like, no, dude, you already made the bed.
Exactly.
And then if you are doing it 100%, not 8%.
All right, we're not going to do the background discussion on Hylar Zotera because that's going to be a whole other thing. But I do have one last topic that I want to talk about. So I got in a Daniel, I really want your thoughts on this because I feel like I know you're going to agree with me. So, and I want someone else that is like competitive and like smart and well known and handsome that can convince hopefully my team.
One of those things.
Dan Miner, if you're listening, and this actually is a message to the entire Canadian and West Coast specifically tournament player league. So if you're in my BC, so we started a BC 40K league in our area. We're at 256 players for like essentially our province, which is like the state. And we've got like 8 different divisions. And so there's actually some amount of players in our area that want to play competitively. And as I mentioned earlier in the show, I bought my first ticket to the first event that we've had in almost a year and a half, Attack X, and I found out very shortly after I bought my ticket that even though it's a 128 point player major, they're only planning to have 5 rounds. So I was like, why? So now hear me out for a sec. So 2-3 years ago, right? The 5 rounds for like majors, like 60 to 100 players was very standard. Like 6 rounds actually is like, I think it's almost like a fairly new thing in the last like 3 years. And even newer than that now are these 3-day, 8 to 9 game majors, things like ACO, all the super majors, right? But it was very common to have 5-round events in like 2018 and 2019. But closer to the end of 2019, and especially in this year, as the kind of circuits back started, 6 games for me is like the standard for anything over 64 players. Like for me, it's the amount of games that should be played. Second, if you're paying for an event and traveling for an event, which almost everyone is to this event because it's in it's a 4-hour drive away from Vancouver, BC, which is the majority of the player base, in a town of like 200,000. So it's in a small town out of I don't even know how big these towns are. I'm just assuming they're small. And so the majority of players are traveling 4 to 6 hours, Kamloops, thank you, to go to this event. Some are coming as far as 6 to 8 hours if they're coming from Vancouver Island, which they have to take a fucking ferry, a 2-hour ferry, just to get onto the mainland. So some people are traveling 6 to 8 hours to this event, and they're only going to get 5 games of Warhammer. So that's my first problem. Second of all, like, we can do 3 and 3, and I think that's a very reasonable thing. I don't think that's like start a little bit earlier on the Friday or on the Saturday and do 3 and 3. I think that's normal too. So now you have to understand something about the West Coast Warhammer League of community, Daniel. I didn't actually get good at Warhammer till I moved to Toronto on the East Coast, because everyone out fucking here is just a bunch of drunks. And there's like 1 or 2. No, I'm not joking. Outside,
no,
there's like
fun group.
Yeah, and like I love them for it, right? But there's like what I played here for a lot of my career, and I was one of those drunks for a long time. And then when I moved to Toronto in like 2018, I think, to open a restaurant, I brought my Warhammer, and I got in with like the ETC guys, most of the teams out there, a lot of the US guys in New York, because we would travel down to Buffalo and play in that whole Northwest scene with like Naden and like TJ where he used to play, and like all those guys. And I went to New York quite a bit. So for me, I like really cut my teeth on the competitive scene out in the East Coast in Toronto, where like literally there's RTTs every weekend within like an hour drive. There's GTs every month, right? So there's a huge thriving scene out there, and it's competitive because the people there actually take the competitive part seriously. But then you come to an event in Vancouver, and you have like a group of guys, which are mostly my friends and people that I hang out with, and we're all just alcoholics. You know, I didn't just so you know, I won West Coast, the main GT, that like last year, but the year before I didn't even make it to day 2. I was so drunk. So that was that. So I didn't make it to day 2 because I was such an alcoholic. I went to Ontario. I learned how to play 40K. I came back and I won the event the next year. That was like my and then that was like my journey of like improving 40K. I went, I got serious, and then I came back and I won the event. So that was like me basically. So I've been having this debate. I'm like, guys, we have to do 6 games. Like, what is this? And Dan, bless his heart, who's one of the TOs, I think he's too worried sometimes about what the players think. So yes, if you have a vocal minority of players that all want to just play 5 games so they can get fucking blasted on the Saturday night and don't have to wake up early on the Sunday, right? And they're the people that are the core tournament goers, then yeah, they're probably going to all advocate for 5 games, which is yeah, that's true.
I saw that comment too.
Yeah, I literally slept 3 nights the year I won, but to be fair. Anyways, but my point is like, as a TO, and again, I'm not a TO, and look, Dan is a legend in our community, and he's done amazing things, so who am I to criticize? The guys run almost every event in this area, but like, at some point, you gotta say how, and this, in my interest, one of the reasons I started the league was because I want to raise the level of play in our area. I want BC, like every year when the ETC team or the WTC team is selected for Canada, do you know how many players they take from the West Coast? 0, because we're all fucking idiots out here. So I want to raise the level of play in the West Coast, in our area, so that when the WTC team is chosen for 2021 or 2022, there's like 2 or 3 people from our side of the country on that team. But so far, and that's part of the reason I started the league. Anyways, I don't know where I'm going with this, but like my point is like I'm working very hard to raise the level of competition, and there are some guys, some on the island. I know like Alex McDougall, my co-host on my Monday show, and he's part of the Art of War team. He's up there. He's competitive. There's lots of guys in BC. There are some guys. Most of them are not in Vancouver, or they're like Evan Stevens. He's one of the competitive guys. He's literally from Toronto. I used to play with him out in Toronto. So I want to raise the level of competition, and I know there's people that want to do it, but it takes the TOs to kind of be like, hey guys, also, yeah, we also want to raise the competition. We want, when people come to our events, and this is actually a really good story, and this is the last story I'm going to say, and then I'll hand it over to you, Daniel. Lou Rollins, bless his heart. He's like an amazing painter, hobby track like champion. I remember, and they actually had this conversation on, I think Peter talked about this. They had an event in their area, and literally Lou called Peter the Falcon basically and said, hey, even though our event is like in Ohio or wherever the hell it was, there were some like really good players there. They like blah blah, and he was trying to like get Peter to understand that it's not, like, and people in general, just to respect the people that won that event. But right now, like, we don't have that respect for our events. When you look at who wins Attack X, Wet Coast, Kippers, the events that are in our area, no one gives a shit because it's the level of competition is so low, right? And I want a higher level of competition, and the only way that we can do that is with the help of the TOs, right? And yeah, I guess just what are your thoughts on that? That's kind of my rant. I'm just like, I just want 6 games, and I'm fighting against an army of drunks basically to get it. And people that just want to leave early. They're just like, oh, we just want to leave early on Sunday so we can be home by 10. I'm like, okay, cool, but like, nah, let me play my 6 games.
So in Florida, the drunks are the competitive players. So that's always fun. But no, honestly, I think there's a real discussion to be had for quality versus quantity of players, and it's a shortcoming of ITC and their point system as well. In that TOs want the highest number of players for the most renown, and so their winner gets the most points. However, that tends to hurt the quality of the event because of the demand of terrain and the demand of rounds to come to a single undefeated player. If you have 256 people in 5 rounds, you're going to have 8 undefeateds at the end of the event. Your entire top 8's undefeated. So whoever had the easiest pairings or played the most points farming list, and like, I don't know, some skew that has a couple bad matchups in that big of a pool, I'm just going to say, hey, I won't hit those matchups. I'm going to get a ton of points and win this event. And I never play Jim with his super grindy, really good, beats everyone take-all-comer list. I'm just going to skew and dodge him. Like, it kind of, if you don't play out to a single or maybe 2 undefeated players, it's hard to feel good about crowning the winner because there's always a what if. Your guy in 8th place could have won the entire event. He just happened to be in 8th place because he drew his worst matchup, grinded out, and won by like 2 points in a 62-60 game. And in the same round, some dude with 4 knights just goes and stomps someone for 100 points in an hour in, and they go get drunk. Like, did you have something to add before I keep diving in?
No, I was just gonna say I agree with you. I think the more undefeated players they go, the less legitimacy and like attention you pay to it. Because if even in our event, which is 128, I think there'll something be like almost 4 undefeated.
Yep.
If there's 4 undefeated, what can you say about that event?
Yeah,
not much.
You can
be like, well, there's 4 people that, and who knows who would have actually won, but like, you know, who the guy with the most easiest win path early, or who got the easiest matchups essentially won the event, but we can't really know much. So because there's 4 undefeateds. So it's like, yeah.
Yeah, and I think part of that issue is, one, people go to Warhammer tournaments because they're fun and they want to watch, they want to see the good players play. I mean, I've had friends who are good Warhammer players. They're not having a great weekend. They drop so they can go watch other games, because for people who like 40K, it's as much a spectator sport as it is a game. That's why battle reports are popular. That's why we're doing what we're doing tonight. People like talking about the game, being around the game. So if you, to that comment, 6 rounds still leaves 2 undefeated. you could have the final 2 people play a 7th round and let everyone else leave, do award
You
ceremonies
could,
and all that. While
but
play.
5 rounds leaves
But
4 people undefeated, which
yeah,
means in 128 players, if 4 undefeated, you can't tell you don't know, you haven't learned anything about that event.
yeah, unless all 4 are Drakari, and then whichever Drakari player got the easiest matchup. But realistically, if there's any army diversity in the top 4, you don't know with generalship or anything else.
Yeah, and I think with 2 undefeated, and even like a fairly large event, 2 undefeated is like I guess tolerable, you know. 4 undefeated
and
for that big of an event feels like, for 128 players, feels like it just feel bad. It's like, well, that's like, I don't know, that's like half an RTT. Like,
yeah,
you know, like, so it's just
so.
yeah.
Also, a point to bring up is so many people don't think about it. The guy who loses on top table round 5. So Jim is 4-0. He's been doing awesome. He's playing against another dude who's averaged 95 points a round. Jim ekes out the win. It's a low win. So suddenly Jim goes from 1st to 4th, and that dude who was riding high, 2nd place all event, now he has dropped out of the top 4 entirely and has no chance to do anything about it because he lost to the other really good player who scored a bunch of points.
Well,
and they have 3 other guys. Like,
so
that's see what I mean? Go ahead.
I'll give you a really good example of that. So Beef and Wing Brawl 3 years ago, going into the final round 5, it was 5 rounds. It was, I was in first, I believe, or Nick Nanavati was in first. Oh, no, I was in first. Nick was in second. We had a random Death Watch player in third, and then TJ in fourth. Now, obviously, I know everything has happened since TJ. So me and Nick played it was Gene Seer Cult versus Thousand Suns, like my Plague Bear list. We played a grueling, grindy, brutal game that ended in like a fucking, like, it was a very close tie. It was very close to a tie. I think he ended up winning by like 1 or 2 points. But he ended up getting like, fuck, I can't even remember how the ITC scores. So what did ITC used to be out of?
42.
It was like, yeah,
like
I think it was like a 28-29 or something really brutal. TJ plays this guy, and he like runs up his entire army and gets like a 40-41 and just leapfrogs both of us, plays the easiest fucking game in his life. So, and I ended up in like 4th place. Nick was in like 2nd, I think, and then TJ ended up wins the event. But like, if you look at my win path, and Nick's previous game too was like super fucking hard, and it's like it was just like such a feel bad. And yeah, sure, TJ won and congratulations to him or whatever. But like the point is like, that's why I truly think that things like ELO ratings need to come in, or something along those lines. Mm-hmm. And second, I think if you should be ranked by the round you lose, not by total win loss and then points. It should be like total points then round, if that makes sense. So like if I lose my first game in my 5th round in the top table game, I'm 2nd. It doesn't matter that someone else who lost their first round has more battle points than me now, and they're on the same record. It should be kind of yeah. So that's what I also think should happen. I don't know if there's a way to do that in BCP, but
there is. I've heard there is.
So Dan, if you're listening, at least give me that. At least give me that, please.
Yeah, because round the T-Whip that Peter does, the first the whoever has the latest first loss should be the highest person.
That's right.
And so obviously 5-0 has no losses, they're going to win. And then if you have 3, 4, and 1s that all lost in the last round, which is then it goes probably to battle not points. Possible, then it goes to battle points. So like your top table guy who lost round 5 might still end up in 3rd or 4th, but he won't drop all the way to 6th or 7th because some scrub lost his first game and then won his next 4 with 100 points each because of weird skews. That's how it goes. So that would make a lot of sense.
That's why I also think that, and I don't know if maybe this is me just wish listing. Imagine we had like a ELO glyco rating that was both global and at a tournament level. So for instance, within a tournament, right, I could say there's 2 4-0 players playing, and I end up one person win, one person loses. But because that I lost that 5-0, my score, my loss points is actually, my ELO actually goes quite low. That actually might mean I could potentially even be higher than someone that was like, I don't know. Like that would automatically mean that I'm the highest of the losses. It doesn't even come to battle points. Yeah. It just means because I played the hardest, because my win path, and say the other 3 people I beat all went to go 4-1 or 3-1, like they had, or 3-2, they had good records. I would have the highest kind of second elo score. Like my score would be the highest because I played the hardest opponents. And
Yeah, and
throughout the tournament.
BCP has the strength of schedule literally on it. So you assign a modifier. Strength of
Yeah.
schedule is your elo rating for that tournament,
So
and then your average strength of schedule plus your average win loss. So you have an expected win based on the strength of your opponent would be how you create your national elo.
yeah, so Brother Tobias says the problem with elo is that players lots of points are encouraged to never play. No, the thing is in the newer so I just use elo as a kind of a catch-all for systems where like obviously there's Glyco 2, there's lots of different systems that are kind of based on the concept of elo, which is when you play someone, you're scored based on their history of games, and then your ranking moves up or down based on those games. But there are lots of systems that incorporate like a decay factor. So say you're the number 1 ranking, if you don't play a game, say in a month, your score decays. So you can't. It actually so elo was invented fucking in like the 30s, right, by like some old Ukrainian chess dude. But the modern versions of these systems, they're actually quite advanced with lots of different math in them, where over time it actually your scores decay. There's different sorts of different sorts of variables inside the formula based on who you're playing, based on like predictions, all sorts of algorithmic stuff. And again, I'm not a master in them, but what you're describing and a lot of those, like the main complaints about these types of systems, a lot of them have been resolved by the modern systems that use rankings. So if you look at something like the ladder system that they have in, say, StarCraft, or like various online games, a lot of those essentially are elo systems. They're not the elo system that you would go and buy a book and read about from the 30s, but they are modified systems that use algorithms to increase or decrease your ranking based on the people you play, based on how often you play. Like if someone plays, say, 1,000 games, and like that might actually affect your score. Just the number of games you've played might affect your score differently than the people you've played, right? So like if I play like 5, so let's say, to give you 2 examples, if I played 1,000 games and I win my next 5 games against other people that have played 1,000 games, maybe my score moves a certain amount. But if I've played 0 games and I win 5 games against someone that's played 0 games, then maybe my score moves more proportionally, because all of a sudden, so these are the things I'm talking about, right? So I don't know all the math, and I'm not going to sit here and explain it, and there's lots of different like systems, but that's not a problem that actually exists. And here's the big thing. With BCP, all that math would be seamless. It would all be behind the scenes. You wouldn't need to, just like you don't know how many ITC points you score right now based on a win or a loss, or like you don't know that. That whole formula is totally proprietary by the BCP. They don't release it. They used to, but they don't anymore. So the complaints of, oh, well, it's too hard to figure out what you score. Well, you don't know that now anyways. You play your event, and at the end your score is there, and that's it. That's like, and there's a bunch of fucking, Albertan math that goes on behind the scenes, and you get a score pops out, and that's your score. Thank you very much. See you later. And no one's like, oh my God, how did they get these points? I don't understand it. No, they just accept that there's an algorithm, there's a formula behind the scenes, and that it does it automatically, and that's all you need to know, right? You don't need to know beyond that. So this whole argument that it's too complicated, I just don't buy it.
Yeah, and honestly, we kind of already do that with the ITC rankings. It would just be adding modifiers, not just isolated events, and then accumulating scores, taking the top ones. That's how you like spit out the number for the best players. You could take every event, every game from every event, take it that next step. You have your national ranking in the ITC, and then you have your elo, and then you might be number 1 in both. Like Stiegler probably would have done that in 2019, but well, you would have sat there most of the time. But anyways, you might be both, but like at the end of the year, you got busy, you had a whole bunch of other stuff. You were sitting number 1 ITC, but you might have decayed to 2, 3, 4, or 5 in the elo because you didn't have the opportunity to play. Lennon and Stiegler were playing more. Yeah. So you get real-time expectation that you can track. So I'm going to this event. I know so-and-so's on a hot streak, or so-and-so hasn't played for a while, but traditionally they're very good. And it just gives you more data based off of data we're already collecting. So that's a little bit of a side tangent, but I agree entirely. Like that's a really good thought.
Yeah, exactly. And there's some really good points. Kpi says it makes it more welcoming for new tournament players because they get matched initially to someone of similar skill. Jocelyn
Yep.
Taylor makes really good points. He's used strength of schedule by hand. And on Politics and Plastic, when I had a whole episode on ELO rating, Politics and Plastic, go check it out with Eric from and he's a TO. He literally went back and hand calculated the entire season up to now by hand. So it's not that hard. And another really good point is that which is here, which is like strength of schedule. No, what was I gonna say?
Yeah, there's a strength
the
of
thing
schedule
about the
tracker.
online. So here's actually a really good thing. So K-Pop makes a good point. Right now, if you look at the Warhammer, and we're who cares? We're talking about whatever we want on the show. There's no we can talk as long as we want. But
That's what we do.
look at the Warhammer events and look at Nova. So the Warhammer official Warhammer events, the Roadshow, they're following the Nova format where you start in a random field, and then you go to a top a bracket of 8, right? But imagine if it was the opposite. Imagine your bracket starts with 8 of similar ELO rating, and then at the end of that, say, first 3 rounds, the person that's the highest rating gets then repaired against everyone else of the high ratings. So you get then bumped up a few brackets, right, based on your rating, or moved across brackets. So at all points in the tournament, you're playing people, even if now that means, say you go 4-0, say it's the first 3 games, you go 3-0, and you're a new player, okay? Now you get bumped to the next bracket. But maybe in that bracket, there are 2 or 3 other 3-0 players from different brackets. But maybe there's some players that are like 1-2 or 2-1 from the top bracket that lost both their games, and they come down to you. So now all of a sudden you have, but their ELO rating has gotten lower, or ultimately so these are the kinds of things that you're always going to keep people similar. And then maybe at the very end, it's kind of like a free-for-all. It's like the top ELO ratings all go into like one bracket, and then they win for the event. Whatever, right? But my point is like, you could actually use it to make the tournament experience a lot better for players, new players, and experienced players. Because now, if I'm going to the LVO and it's a 9-round event, if I lose my game 6 against Siegler after going through a bunch of brutal games, that doesn't mean I'm out of it. It just means now my rating drops. Now maybe I'm like 8th seed going to the final if I win my next 2 games. So there's still a chance for me, right?
Yeah, because of who you lost to. Like, that's a big option as a tiebreaker. I like a lot. But the big thing that you mentioned that I really like the idea of is parity. If you have, so in a normal event, if I'm doing well and I live in the state of Florida and I've played 3 RTTs my entire life, I'm doing well. I've won my first game. I have a close game against someone. I win my second game. So all of a sudden I'm playing against Lennon, and it's like, well, I lose so fast I didn't even learn anything because I've played in 3 RTTs and this dude has won more GTs than I've played games of 40K. Like, that's a scenario that exists in the state of Florida. So sure, you might go 3-0 in a system where there's a bunch of parity and you just keep playing against guys who are 1-2, and then maybe your last opponent, whatever. So you might go 3-0 and not win that specific event, but you're playing against people of similar skill. You're learning how to improve, and then you're finding out, like, as you're kind of graduating through these levels, you're getting to a real understanding of where you are as a player and how to improve. And so instead of, it's like, right now, it's kind of like the business. Like, if you work in business, you get promoted until you're in a position that you suck at, and then you never get promoted again. That's kind of how the tournaments currently play. You keep getting promoted until you just get shit on, and then your tournament's over because you have no chance of winning. If there was more parity throughout events, I think it could be a more rewarding experience for pretty much everyone there.
Yeah, and like, don't get me wrong, it's not a perfect system, and I'm not saying that it's perfect or that there's no flaws or that there's no downsides. I just think ultimately, it solves a lot of the. I think it will improve the overall experience for everyone, and it makes it more. A big point that I made is it removes this incentive for TOs to continue this arms race of bigger and bigger events. And to Dan's point of the 5 games, guess what? If we were doing ELO, I wouldn't give a fuck if we played 4 games, because I know I'm gonna get my points for like the amount of point rounds in that event. Well, I would still care because I want more games just to play more. But like, from the purposes of a ranking system, and I don't care. So here's the thing, guys. It's going to be September before this event goes. That's my first event of the season. That's going to have points for me. I'm in no way, shape, or form at all even closely going to be competing this ITC season. My season's already over. Like, it's long gone. It's going to be like, those games are going to be probably like my 7th and 8th games of like real life Warhammer. Like I'm like, and I don't even expect to do that well at the event because I'm going to be out of practice. So I'm not doing this because I think that like I want more ITC points so that I can win the ITC this year. That's like literally that ship has sailed fucking 2 years ago. My point is, what it does is it also removes this arms race to have bigger and bigger events, because now the size of your event doesn't determine the strength of the competition and the I guess what's the word I'm looking for? Like how like fuck, I can't think of the word.
The legitimacy of
the
event.
legitimacy, or like how like big of a deal it is. Because if I go to say Battle for Salvation in New York, which I went to 2 years ago, which is a notoriously hard event, it's like a 64 player event, but it's just a murderer's row of some of the best players in the world, and that is an incredibly hard tournament. Like if you finish 20th there, that's like winning a GT in Vancouver.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's how hard it is. And it just like, yeah. So there's something to be said there. Go ahead.
I was going to say, thinking about it, the professional sport that Warhammer most closely parallels is golf. And they have a handicap system. So any golfer in the world can input on this computer system their average score for every round they go to. And if you're par, I don't remember the exact numbers, but if you're 8 over par on average, then you're an 8 handicap. So you could increase quality of events with a handicap type system. Like you can't sign up for this event unless you're a handicap 3 or lower. And like that's how you get like the masters and stuff. So instead of LVO, we've got 1,200 people. Like, cool, good job. Like it's just a big hangout. And then you make the top players grind 15 events to find out who's the best. If it was the masters, where you have all your 0 handicap players, the professionals of the sport, like you have 20 people play 3-4 rounds and you find out who wins. And then you can have a whole big event. You can have other people there. You can have all spectators, whatever. But an ELO system would be similar to a handicap system, and you have to be a certain rating for these invitationals. And suddenly the emphasis becomes an invitational and earning your spot. Then I'm just going to throw $100 at a ticket. I'm going to fly out there and I'm going to drink beer, and like now we have to play 12 rounds because a bunch of dudes want to go hang out and drink beer together, which is totally cool. That's a ton of fun. You can have open events. That's why there's open and invitational. But an open is more valuable than an invitational when the invitational is harder. Yeah. So that's something you could switch. You could have more high level games. You could stream more high level games, and you can have more media presence, more professional quality streams and everything. Make it more of a professional sport for the people who are into that. And guess what? If you're not into that, you don't have to be. Hey, I have this handicap. This is my range. I'm going to do an event that is for these people. I'm going to drink beer. I'm going to get paired based off of that. We're all going to have a good time. It gets you to the closest parity to where everyone going to these events should have a good time and should have competitive games. And it makes your rating, your personal score, unlock events that you get to go to. And you might be 16th out of 16 at an invitational, and guess what? That's still damn good because you got to go to the invitational, and the other 5,000 people playing Warhammer every month didn't.
And and as I said, I've talked about this with the TOs too. There's an immense cost to running events, and especially large events, and not just in venue costs and train costs and organization costs. Like it's a lot easier running a 32-person event than a 300-person event, and it removes that pressure on these TOs to continue to try to run events either that are going to be so expensive or outside of their means, and then you end up with the London GT where everyone just has fucking styrofoam boxes on the table because they didn't think that they had so much, their train requirements were just through the roof. Or Nova, which is now fucking throwing a Kickstarter GoFundMe because they have to store 600 tables worth of train every year. That's for $100,000. Like it removes, and then smaller events can have a lot of prestige to them, right? You can have a small event with some really good players there, and it's like, wow, that was a really hard event based on the average like ELO score. So all of a sudden, lots of small events with like invitationals and opens and whatever becomes the norm versus these like behemoth 3-day events where now I got to book off 5 days of work. I got to you got to play 3 days. Like, it's like, not to say that I don't like that and not to say that those should go away, but I just think right now there's this huge pressure for everything to be as big as possible, the most players
Yep.
as possible, the biggest venue as possible. Like that is where all the pressures of the competitive scene are pushing TOs and players towards that. So if I only can go to 6 events a year based on my budget, look, I make a lot of money. I could probably travel like I did in 2019 to 20 plus events a year, and I'd be fine. Not everyone can do that. Some people can go to 5 or 6 events a year, which means if I can only go to 5 or 6 events a year, which ones am I going to go to? Am I going to go to the 32-man GT that's a 2-hour drive? Or I'm going to skip it and go to the 64-man GT that's 2.5-hour drive? Or the 120 major that I have to catch a plane to, right? So now now my smaller local GTs, my community is starting to die because the events literally cannot, they're either they have to be big enough to attract players, and then, but the TOs, there's not people to run. Look, I personally, Jim, who said would never fucking run an event, I would run a 16-man RTT. That's about the extent of like work that I'd be willing to do. Maybe 32. I'd put the work to set up 16 tables, to organize 16 tables of terrain in a venue that big. That's where I'd probably tap out. Anything past that, that's way too much work, way too much effort, whatever. But I would do I would do like a 32-person 16 table thing, or even a 16-man RTT. Like I think I have the energy and the ability to do that. If you said, "Hey Jim, would you organize a 128 player?" I'd be like, "Fuck no." Like figuring all that logistics out, fuck no. And so now smaller TOs, like sorry, last point. If you want to get if you want to organize a tournament now, and you've never done it before, what is your stepping stone? You basically can maybe run an 8-man RTT with your buddies out of the game store, or nothing, because no one's going to come to your event if they've never heard of it. Or you have to invest so much money in terrain and tables and all this stuff just to make it big enough and prestigious enough for people to actually come to it. And I just think it's really toxic.
Yep, that's exactly the transition I was going to, is it, because it's all about size of event, for people who care about their ITC score, GTs don't matter, and they're basically just practice. And then for people who can't go to the super majors, who like it creates a weird thing. Like you have a ceiling on how well you can do nationally, because like in Florida, I have a ton of events. I don't get massive events. If I want a massive event, I've got to travel up north, or I got to travel out west. It's a huge expense. Generally, my personal range is going to about Tennessee. Like 8-hour, 10-hour drive is about my limit. I don't fly very often because the logistics are a nightmare. So unless I really want to uptick how much I'm investing, my ceiling as a player right now is trying to win a 64-man 6-round major, or like whatever. I think 64 is a major, but like that's about the biggest logistically I can go to. And if I win that, like that's a huge accomplishment for me. But it kind of creates this two-edged sword where the higher elo players in my area, which are some of the best players in the world, like they're going to come win that thing. So I'm always competing against them, and that's my ceiling. That's kind of their floor. But it doesn't matter because they're going to go play all the bigger events that I can't make it to. So it's a compounding issue. One, for tournament organizers, like I'm going to run this event that probably doesn't have an impact on the ITC score for any of the top players who care. So I either have to get bigger to draw those players here, get the name recognition, or I just have to accept I'm just going to be a small event, and the only people coming aren't going to be the best players, which is fine. Like, please support your communities and do that. But the style of draw that you're going to get to these events, it's haves or have nots. You're a massive event, you're going to get all the attention, you're set up for it, or you're going to be a smaller event. You don't really matter that much to the ITC score for on the national level. And like it's like you said, people don't want to travel to those small events. They're only going to travel to the big ones, and it's kind of this weird. It's almost two different games trying to exist as one.
Yeah,
is almost what it ends up being.
And you said something, Daniel, which I thought was really interesting. You said I would travel. I think you said like 8 to 10 hours max by car.
Yeah.
I want everyone to understand something. Before the 2019 season, I had never flown to a GT ever. The idea, in fact, when I used to play when I was younger, actually that's a lie. I did fly to the Calgary GT in like 2005 for like Warhammer Fantasy, but that was like a $300 ticket, and I don't even know how I got there, but that's another thing. But the idea for most people to fly, to get on an airplane, to fly somewhere to play Warhammer, that is like a whole, there's a gulf between most 95% of players in that step. That is like literally going from the base of Mount Everest to halfway up in a single step. Like that is a huge gap of those two types of players. The kinds of players that will literally get on a plane, that will buy a plane ticket to fly. That's one. Second, the amount of players that will also drive more than 3 hours to go anywhere. And if you said I say 4 hours to Kamloops. When I talk to my friends in the UK, the idea of driving more than an hour anywhere is like insane to them. They're just like, what? Like, what are you talking about? Like, they obviously, I think some of the UK guys drove to like the WTC or something. They did a big road trip. But if you're in like the UK, for instance, for you to drive like more than 2 hours somewhere is like that concept is alien. And when I told some of the UK guys that regularly I drive 6, 7, 8, 9 hours to an event, they think I'm mental. Because for them, that's literally in 9 hours from England, you can be in fucking Africa. You can be in fucking the Middle East. Like, that's literally like you can be in fucking the boot of Italy in 9 hours. Like, that's literally the distances we're talking about here, right? So for them, that just is totally insane. And we have to do North America because we live in a fucking giant wasteland with lots of space. But
yeah. Florida, I can drive for 9 hours and still be in Florida. Like,
yeah, same thing with BC.
That's a thing that happens.
Like, I used to live in a town that was a 13-hour drive northeast, and it was in the same state. 13 hours. 13 hours in any direction from the UK, and you're in the ocean.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, you know what I'm saying?
But all that to say, yeah, it's a huge jump for one. You kind of have to be good enough to know that the investment of the flight, the hotel, and everything is worth it. And then the flip side of that is, like, it's an expensive hobby. Like, most people playing this game aren't broke scrounging together to like barely get this army together if they're already traveling to events and following the meta. Like, there's an understanding of investment of money, but it is a major financial strain to take that next step to get to the big events if your goal is to be that competitive. So there's, like, again, instead of having like rewards and stuff for being the best in your area, grinding out elo, doing all that stuff, it could be cost prohibitive to go to the big events right now that everyone's going to just because they have to if they want to be relevant on the scoreboard. So there's a lot of barrier to entry to become one of those players that has the recognition.
Yeah. You know, it'd be really, if only there was like a company that had like a global network of stores where people could play games at a local level and then qualify for larger events that also had the budget to potentially reward those players, to fly them out and reward them to even larger qualifying events. If only such a company existed that in the world.
And if only there was precedent from other companies that did the exact thing you described.
Yeah. I'm like, Games Workshop. True story. In 2003, I think I worked for Games Workshop 2004, 2005. I was like 16 when I was 16, 18. We used to have the Games Workshop staff tournament. And literally, you would qualify in your local store. So you'd play a store champion against your staff. Then that winner would play a regional championship against, like, so I was in Victoria at the time, so the GW there. So I came to Vancouver for the day. I played their 2 store champions here. And then the winner got to fly to Oakville, which is where the old head office was in Toronto, in Ontario, and play in like the Games Workshop Staff Championship, which was all of the champions from across Canada. And that was all paid for by Games Workshop. Now, I was a staff member, but like, how cool would it be if all the games, there's literally 2 Games Workshop stores here in the Lower Mainland. There's one in Victoria. They could also maybe qualify certain game stores as like these types of special, like the old battle bunkers, or like, here you get a special badge that means you're like an official Games Workshop circuit store and you're in the circuit of the Greater Games Workshop Competitive League. You play, you win maybe a store league or store championship of some kind. You get an invitation to a regional thing, which maybe costs you some money to travel. And if you win that, then you get flown, just like they're doing for the Warhammer Roadshow, to LA to fight in the Warhammer North American Championships against all the other regional winners.
Yeah.
That would be fucking so amazing. Awesome. That'd be amazing.
And how, like, that, honestly, I've played, HeroClix, Magic the Gathering. I've played so many games that did have that or similar in place. There were goals and check marks, like playing sports in high school. I pole vaulted in high school. I wanted to go to districts, so if I placed well in districts, I could go to regionals, then I could go to state, then I could go to nationals. It was a very obvious goal that everybody did. Why not apply that to Warhammer? Like it's tried, it's true, it's proven, it makes sense, and we've talked about it multiple times now. It creates parity on the local level, and then you have reps from each region, and now no good players in Florida. We'll find out for real. Here's our regional representatives.
Right.
Like it again, it tells you on whatever their circuit is and their timelines, it shows you and tells you who the best players are at a given time in a given area.
Yeah. And the other thing I could do, which I think, like, we always talk about these things, and sometimes it's like, well, this is going to cost lots of money. But look, here's my calculus, right? If you look at the prevalence of 3D printed models and people using non-manufacturers models, I bet you if you ran official Games Workshop events, which they are obviously doing now, but in the stores where you require people to have official Games Workshop models, and they couldn't bring in 3D prints, they couldn't bring in fucking some tits with guns Kickstarter that they fucking bought into, whatever, and you had to use, and that means that they're purchasing Games Workshop models. I bet you the increase in sales there, and there's an entry fee. Let's say there's a nominal entry fee, $10, whatever, right? Or if you spend $100, you get a free entry. Make it something like that, right? Look, guys, look at me. Just hire me, Games Workshop. I can do this all for you. But you could do something like that. And what it does is it also indirectly, it kills the third-party market in a lot of ways, because now all of the fucking, Kickstarters and 3D printing and STL stuff, that's not part of this. You've now almost unilaterally kicked them out. Now, if people want to play that stuff at home, but if you can create enough of an incentive structure within the Games Workshop ecosystem that's official by the company that actually makes the game, there is a gravity. And as much as people hate Games Workshop, there is something to be said about when they do something officially, whether it's an event, whether it's a, even Warhammer World, or when they used to do the GTs or the Games Days. Winning a Games Day, for instance, a painting competition, a Golden Demon, is a lot different than winning Crystal Brush or some other random paint competition. There is a prestige with winning a Golden Demon. There's a prestige with being like the winner of like a GT, a Warhammer official GT. Even if a lot of people might not see it, there is a draw to that. I think that's, if I could have an official Games Workshop plaque, which I do two of in my house from the old GTs, I'm not saying, just saying, then there's something to that draws players. There's a gravity to that. If I can be in White Dwarf as the champion of the fucking 40K league and I get published on the website, there's something fucking
lootly.
That's fucking cool, and I would want that, right? If I get so if I, maybe the North American champion gets fucking flown to Warhammer World, and he gets to go hang out get the tour of the
yeah. Well,
there's people will want to do it, is what I'm saying. Is like, as much as people hate Games Workshop, my last thing is people will want to do that. They're not going to be like, oh, it's Games Workshop, I don't want to do it. No, they're going to be like, fuck yes, let me do it.
A big reason is one of almost any human on this planet's drive is recognition. And you can get so much recognition from the community by being good at 40K, but if you win Games Workshop events, if you're in the Games Workshop White Dwarves, if you're being interviewed by Games Workshop, there's a whole nother level. That's like a college football player being interviewed by the NFL. Like, that's his dream. He'll talk to other like media outlets and all that crap. An NFL coach comes to a college football player and says, "Hey man, I like your game. Keep doing what you're doing." That made his entire year. Not talking to Adidas, not talking to all these other like news outlets. He cares about one thing, and that's his goal. That's to get to the promised land of the NFL. Same exact thing. If Games Workshop is running events and you become a top player at Games Workshop events, there's going to be recognition from Games Workshop. And if you get the opportunity, like you said, to be flown out to Warhammer World to play the game with the game developers, get the chance to talk to these dudes that play the game we love and hate so much, like, if you win the chance to talk to them, why not? Like, how cool would that be?
Yeah. So, anyways, Daniel, it's been 2 hours a quarter, and I'm sure we could. I feel like we could talk about this all night, and I'm sure we will.
We're hitting it good right now.
But in the interest of your time and me having to actually go do more work, I'm gonna close it down. The two quick things I want to say, if you haven't, check out the new trailer for Elden Ring. It's a game by the guys that do Dark Souls. If you guys are if you like Dark Souls, Bloodborne, any of those games, I just saw the trailer today. It looks fucking awesome. I don't know if Daniel you play any of those games, but if you play Sekiro, which is an amazing game, it's like they're like action RPGs. And they're fucking brutal. You just die constantly. Like they're so hard, but they're amazing games. And I just saw the trailer for Elden Ring today, and also the Netflix dropped a new trailer for the new He-Man animated series. So I don't know if you're into that, but definitely check that out because that fucking looks awesome. It's actually been produced by Kevin Smith, and it's the Skeletor is voiced by Mark Hamill. So I'm really actually excited to watch that. It reminds me of my childhood because I used to have fucking He-Man toys when I was a kid. So I'm very, very excited for that. Anything else in your life that people should know about or you're excited about before we sign off here?
Not too much. Just you can find me at Florida Man 40K, where I hang out with a couple of the best players in Florida, and we just hang out, have a good time, and go on rants like me and Jim did here. And hopefully you'll be seeing us at events more coming up.
Yeah,
So,
I'm I don't know what event it's gonna be, but guarantee you I'm gonna make it down to Florida for an event this year before the end of the year. So let me know. When is Crucible?
It is literally my wedding anniversary, October
Okay.
15th, and the wife lets me go because she understands.
I'll have to look at the dates because that might actually be when Kippers. When is Kippers? Really, that's the other event, the local event I was talking about. I think it's maybe the week before, the week after. Let's see here.
Same week.
There's an announcement today actually about it. It is Kippers. Let me go to the website. God damn it. Jen, if you're listening, if you're gonna do an ad for your event, it's October 16th and 17th.
Gosh dang it! Yeah, we're 15th, 16th, and 17th. 3-day
so I
event.
can't make it. I probably can't
Jim.
make it, but I'll see. If not that, then maybe something else. So
we'll just bring you in. I'll put you up in the house, and we'll just get all the guys together.
Do you think you're
We'll
gonna
go
make
on a binger.
do you think you're gonna make LVO this year? Is that is that a
No,
possibility?
not yet. Cross country is a little bit much. My goal is LVO 2022. 2023.
Okay.
I want to go. My idea is what you did in 2019. I want to be in a position to do that for the 2022 season.
Right.
Yeah, 2022 season.
So
that's
how
my
far are
goal.
you from Orlando?
Orlando's like an hour drive for me, dude.
Okay, because I don't know if it's open yet, but once the new Star Wars world opens up in Disney World, I want to go. So
it's open.
Maybe I'll is it fully like finished though? Because I know they were still building it, and then COVID hit, so I'm not really sure what the status of it is. But there's like a hotel where it's like you basically pretend you're there's like a space hotel I want to stay in. So let me see, and I'll come in the winter when it's miserable in Vancouver, for sure.
Perfect.
And maybe you can come hang out with me at Disney World.
I would love to. I got family that works there, so we can just go for free.
Perfect.
Which is always cool. The hotel, you pretty much got to make 7 figures to get into that hotel. So start saving now.
Oh, is it that expensive?
Yes.
Damn it.
I have family that works in hotel sales, and when you talk about $50,000 reservations for a week,
Are
and
you
those
kidding?
are the low end. No, I
and
wish
people
I was.
they're actually filling their rooms.
Yeah.
Jesus. Well, maybe I'll just go work as a protocol droid at the hotel instead of actually staying there. I'll just walk around in one of those R2D2 mini skirts like the girls wear for Halloween, and I'll see where that gets me.
Do.
Yeah, I'll see where that gets me.
I'm pretty sure you're allowed to now with some of their new policies. So
Perfect. Yeah,
I'm about it.
I'll identify as a droid. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have been talking with Daniel Smith. Daniel, always a pleasure to have you. My name is Jim Vessel.
It was a ton of fun.
This has been the Best Overall Show. Make sure to follow, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And we will talk to you guys. I'll see you guys on tomorrow, maybe. Actually, I won't be here tomorrow. I don't know. Check my stream schedule, guys. I don't even know what it is. But have a great weekend, and I will talk to you guys soon. Bye-bye.